All right. Welcome to the Awesome Wedding Experience podcast. I'm your host, DJ Nick at Night. We are back from a little bit of time break we need to take to get our things back together. We were dealing with some sickness and some family emergencies, but now we're back filming season 1 of the Awesome Wedding Experience podcast. If you haven't seen already, we have
season 1 best season. Or what is it? What is
inaugural best?
Best. I can't. I'm not cool enough to like get that phrase down.
We'll leave it to you.
Yeah. We started with the season with our first episode, just talking about an intro into the Austin wedding market with Ashley Nicole Affair. Amanda and Ashley was a wonderful episode. Then the second episode we did was photography and videography. Lauren and Lauren was an amazing episode too, just kind of talking about the basics of those two things. But today we're here talking about venues, and we have two amazing people that are going to be sharing their expertise with us about venues. And really, I wanted to introduce, first of all, thank you so much for having us here or joining us on the podcast. Ren and Jodi, nice to have y'all on.
We're happy to be here. Thanks for doing a podcast on this industry. We think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Wow, we should have maybe practiced that a little.
So, we really, originally the idea was to talk about venues, and Ren here reached out and said, hey, have you heard about Wedding Scout? And I hadn't. So we're going to be talking about Wedding Scout today as we go through, but we'd like to also give a shout out to the Lion Hotel, who is offering their space here today, which we're in shooting the episode. So really want to give a shout out to the Lion, and of course, Wedding Scout for showing up today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think this is really cool. I think that our industry is growing, and I love that you're just starting this podcast for Austin-specific event industry. I think it's really smart.
We're just here to have a conversation and just talk about, how the flow of things are going. I love talking about weddings so much, so this is second nature. But tell me a little bit about Wedding Scout, but before Wedding Scout began, how you got into the wedding industry and what that was like.
Yeah. I mean, in short, Wedding Scout is virtual tours of wedding venues with help from pros and with help from budget calculators, but it's really for that first step when you get engaged and you're looking for your venue. That's what we want to specialize in.
So important.
So to tell you a little bit about how I got there, I'm born and raised Texan. I grew up in New Braunfels. I went to undergrad at A&M studying political science. I had a really great career in political science. I moved to Austin to go to the LBJ school. I have a master's in public affairs, and I worked at the Capitol for 10 years, which sounds really crazy that I'm here now.
It is.
Yeah, very overeducated wedding planner. So, but in short, my husband, now husband and I were at an event, a Capitol event. It was an Earth Day event at the Bar Mansion. Bar Mansion's really into sustainability and all of that.
Yeah. Love Bar Mansion.
I was at Bar Mansion on Earth Day with the love of my life, feeling the wine. And I said, hey, what do you think about getting married here? And he was like, you do a better DJ. Maybe you could And come to find out, Bar Mansion, of course, was booking out over a year in advance. So before my husband even proposed, I booked a wedding at the Bar Mansion as a single woman. I'm a type A planner through and through.
That is
always
amazing.
have been.
That's amazing. I love that you did.
That's going to be a reoccurring theme today. I think we'll find out.
Yeah. And lucky for me, he did propose eventually and liked Bar Mansions. So fast forward, at the time, Bar Mansion, which a lot of venues are today, were very turnkey. And I think that that's helpful to talk about. A turnkey venue is a place that typically has your linens, chairs, caterer, bar. At that time, it was even florist. So all my money, all my energy and time was locked in there. Sadly, it got struck by lightning and burned to the ground, which a lot of people don't know about.
I had
but if
no
you Google,
idea.
Oh, Google Bar Mansion fire. It's like PTSD to this day. It makes me cry.
That is crazy. And it's beautiful now. It's
so
been rebuilt.
gorgeous.
It's been rebuilt for everyone
rebuilt,
interested.
yeah.
Yes.
But that's pretty much how I got into it. So that forced me to hire a wedding planner. My wedding was around the corner. And so I hired 36th Street Events to save my wedding day.
Heroes.
And it was such a different landscape back then with venues. There were much fewer venues, of course. Mm-hmm. But our date was November 6th. It was a peak season date. And back then, football season mattered. Now, does anybody even look at football season? Now it's like F1 and ACL and all these other dates that are so much more important. But important in terms, of course, of logistics. But I don't want any Longhorns to get pissed at me for saying that. Logistically more important occasions. So Through that process of saving my wedding day, I got to know wedding planning. And I would argue that the skill sets that I already had in place, being budget management, project management. I mean, my job at the legislature was like taking a baby bill and like making it to law, right? So it's project management, budget management, dealing with really intense deadlines, dealing with really big egos, dealing with a lot of money. I was kind of ripe to just become a wedding planner. And so it was on our honeymoon flight home from Spain that my now husband said, would you consider this? And I was like, what? You know? But then, you know, a couple glasses of wine with the owner, and I was like, maybe, after we talked about, I don't know, cash flow and health insurance and all the important basic adult things, and I fell in love with it. So I became a wedding planner with 36th Street. I've loved it. I've thrived.
And that
very
was
quickly.
in 2011, I think I saw on your
Exactly.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
I got married in 2010 and then was a wedding planner by 2011. Still paying off my master's degree. Don't recommend that.
Yeah, I feel that going to UT
My dad
myself.
was rolling his eyes. It was a very much like told you so moment. But I think that, I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I think that in general, at least, especially then, the Austin wedding planning industry and just wedding industry in general was pretty nascent, pretty novice. But coming in there, having had a professional background, I was able to talk to these parents. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like more about the parents. They're typically the ones paying you, right? So to be able to convince them to trust you with this investment is hard. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but anybody breaking into the industry, you have to know how to sell yourself, which is so hard. You can be amazing, and if you can't sell yourself, screwed. Just hang it up, you know?
Yep.
So I just had to kind of figure that out. So fast forward 10 years, I was going to build my own wedding venue. Few people know about that, but we had investors. We had a plot of land. I was at my dining room kitchen, literally laptop open on the State of Texas website, filing for my business documents when Beth Walker, owner of 36th Street, my boss at the time, said, check out this venue. And my heart sunk. I mean, just yet again. I mean, when the venue burned down, cried for 7 days. When Beth sent me this text, I cried for 7 days. Like, it's just my little adventure. But basically, my first thought was this venue. Hacked my computer and stole my plans. Like, that's how, and I was already feeling a sense that maybe the wedding industry, the venue side of it was maybe oversaturated. We done so much research and due diligence to even get investors to come on board. We had to do so much research. And I only mention that because yet again, that helped propel my next step. The fact that I'd done all this research and really knew so much about venues to launch my own venue. Even though, yet again, my own dream never came to fruition, it patted the way for the next dream, which was Wedding Scout. Yeah. So I think that's always that was a way long-winded story. I need to really get that down into an elevator pitch, but it's the real, it's like the real story of life just keeps kicking you in the shorts and you just have to keep going and trust. Because now with Wedding Scout, I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, there's nothing I'd rather do. So I did all this research for venues. And then I was just down the street at the Four Seasons Hotel one day, pre-pandemic, having wine again. That's like a through. The wine is a through line of my story.
A reoccurring theme.
With Morissette, who used to sell weddings at Four Seasons. And I just asked off the cuff, hey, how much of your work week is spent giving tours to people that just aren't a good fit? I was genuinely curious because it's the Four Seasons. And she said 50%, and my jaw dropped. I was like, girlfriend, like I know she makes a decent amount of money and has great benefits. I was like, 50% of your work week is literally wasted. It just blew my mind. But what really blew my mind is that weekend I went to Laguna Gloria, where we had a wedding, and I asked their venue manager the same question. Completely different style venue. It's an art museum.
Yeah, completely outdoors for anyone not familiar with Laguna Gloria, or a little bit of it inside, but mostly outdoors.
Mostly outdoors. On a lake. You bring everything in.
Yes.
So whereas, Four Seasons is Four Seasons, but Laguna Gloria is just a gorgeous art museum on the lake. And asked her the same question, and without flinching, it was the same answer, 50%. So I just knew like that, when you have a little something and it's like rattling around in your brain. Because as a wedding planner, we all can relate. Honestly, I just spend a lot of time pro bono helping people find a venue because they can't really sign my contract until we have a date.
Right.
At 36th
I see what
Street,
you mean.
I mean, we book out our events, our schedule a year in advance. So it's hard to talk to you about next year and get excited and develop that rapport and become buddies without a date. So a lot of times I would just spend my own time pro bono and be like, don't even look there. Nope. Okay, let's down to here, right? You do the same thing, I'm sure. And so as a wedding planner, I had a problem. And then, of course, the clients have a problem. I mean, there's just so many venues out there now in the Austin area. They're all so different. It's hard to compare apples to apples. And they don't really know where to start. And they're just like in, I don't know, serotonin overload. Like they just got engaged and they're happy and they want to focus on dresses and makeup and rings and bachelorette parties. Having to kind of come down from that cloud to really focus on, I mean, picking a venue sets the course for the rest of wedding planning. It sets the course for the rest of your budget. So it's hard to kind of take them out of the clouds and, get them to look at the meat and potatoes. Anywho, I just completely digressed and lost my train of thought. But, with Marset. So basically just like between those two venues, I thought, wow, there's three players and all of them have a problem. And I think I have an idea of how to solve it.
Yeah.
So that's how Wedding Scout was born.
That is an incredible background story.
that.
Yeah, I love it too. And Jodi, for yourself, I know you had kind of an extensive history in management.
Makes me sound old.
Extensive.
Same thing.
I'm like, it's a long story because we're old.
That's true. You're right.
Shoot,
So
wait.
you can shave 10 years off.
I just spanned
You
from
shut
like,
your mouth. You're an adult.
I just spanned from 27 years old to 42 years
Exactly.
old.
It's a long
So it
story.
sounded long, but like I covered a lot.
Yeah. Well, in this industry, so many people have similar backgrounds, and right? I mean, because you can't, you have to be a certain type of person to be in the long game. But I mean, mine was a little bit reversed because I started in hotels, which I absolutely loved. I was with a large chain for 15 years on and off, just because I wanted to try something new, but I always went back to hotels, both in events and sales. And then when I moved to Austin, I did move here to work at the Driscoll, and that was a really special time.
That was in 2019, I think I saw, or 20, somewhere in there. Yeah.
1 year, like to the day when everything shut down.
That's crazy.
Because I moved here the second weekend of South by. And in 2019. So by the next year, we were shutting everything down. So very grateful, though, for that year because that's when I really fell in love with Austin, fell in love with my now husband. So that was really an important year for me.
And moved here from DC where you had
Moved here from, yes. So most of my wedding experience before here was in the DC market. And so that's a whole different ballgame. And it's been incredibly just interesting as someone that loves this industry is just how drastically locations, matter and can change budget, can change who attends your wedding, all these things. But anyway, still have always had an interest in venues in general because it was my bread and butter for a while. But also there's just so much information that there's so much education for the consumer, right? And so, so what led to the relationship Ren and I have is by 2021, I was married, very small wedding, and I was like,
as one does in the pandemic.
Exactly, and it was amazing. It was a small wedding, is great. Probably won't keep me employed for very long, but it was lovely, and I knew. I finally felt like knowing what my passion was in terms of just being full-time in weddings. I had never had that opportunity in DC. Rent was high, my mortgage was high. The cost of living, I could not make it work. But by the time we reached, a huge life transition, I was like, I can't get to my 40th birthday, which was kind of just around the corner, and not pursue this passion. And so in 2021, I officially left Hyatt and started Etc. Coordinators, which focuses on month of coordination. And that's what branched, or was the olive branch? I don't know. Was
the
the bridge to Ren, because she had actually been promoting Wedding Scout, and I was like, wow, what a great partnership it could be for Etc. Coordinators who's only ever going to focus on month of coordination and really be experts in that. So we're never going to be looking for venues. We're never going to be that resource to
You're not
a
on the
couple.
front end. You're fully back end. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, what a great partnership it could be for us and Wedding Scout, because we're still, helping with all the resources that a couple needs, but but kind of staying in our lanes, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and with Wedding Scout, I mean, we do have a calculator, right? So for the most part, you can. I'm not going to tell you what your floral budget is, but the basics: transportation, valet, food and beverage, venue fee, like the sort of meat and potatoes we lay out for you based on your guest count.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a match made in heaven, and that if you didn't really need the help with design and all of that, you could almost
I see.
like jump from
That
one
makes a
to
lot of
one.
sense.
So that's kind of how we
That bridge does work
were
really well then.
simpatico in that department.
Yeah. But it still took a little bit longer. I mean, we still okay, so I actually asked a mutual friend, her neighbor, I was like, can you introduce me to Ren?
This is my neighbor, like in a cul-de-sac. Like I can look out my dining room window and I can see her house.
Oh,
like,
so y'all live
so-
like right next to each
No,
other.
no,
No,
our
she-
mutual
our
friends.
mutual
Okay,
friend.
okay,
So
okay,
very
okay.
random. But she had sent me a giveaway you were doing, because I was getting married, and she's like, you should enter this giveaway, this is my neighbor. And I was like, my wedding scout. I was like, oh my gosh. So all the wheels were turning, as they do with like entrepreneurship, and I was like, I need to meet her. So we did a Google chat or something to get to know each other. But then, so fast forward, we ended up reconnecting again at a networking event where I met Beth. And it was just love. It was just like so much love in the room. We were
I
just
basically convinced Beth to hire her on the spot.
On the spot.
Yeah.
we were just
when you just have those connections.
yeah.
And even fast forward even further, are you into Enneagrams? Are you an Enneagram
No idea.
person? No.
No,
what?
no.
Do you,
Oh, you should be.
Oh, you
I
should.
wasn't until like a couple weeks ago.
I mean, it's just like Myers-Briggs and
Okay,
different,
okay.
like
Yeah.
personality
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, some people are into horoscopes, some people are into Myers-Briggs. I happen to really believe in Enneagrams, but we all took the test as a group, and me and Jodi were like lockstep, like we are the same human.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
wow.
so strange. Because we
strange
have very
because our
different
lives are
lifestyles
different,
and stuff like that.
But our core is the same.
Exactly. Well, so connecting with Beth was actually just the perfect piece of the puzzle, because it allowed me to take on my next goal, which was to move into full service weddings and design. Still have my Etc. Coordinators brand and team, and fill that void. And then so now I'm supporting
Bringing on
Ren,
new venues,
and on the sales side of things, because I love the information that it not only gives our potential clients, but gives me. I mean, I
go to cocktail parties and wedding planners come up to me and they're like, Ren, I use your website all the time to like build their own budgets. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool.
Exactly. I can't tell you how, when I do have a full service client that, especially if they're out of town and we're starting from scratch. So they're not coming to say like, this is my style. They're really just like, this is how many people are expecting. This is our general date
Very
range.
basic stuff.
So basic. And it's, I have a few ideas, but we still have to have a way to organize ourselves, and just, get that information tight. And that's like, so I have found as a planner, it's just a great kind of tool, let alone for, in terms of the clientele or the couple or mother, that
Why'd you
really
look at
has
me when you
nothing.
said mother?
Oh, because you said mother. Because you said mom.
I'm just kidding.
I know, but you are a mom.
I am.
I'm a dog mom, so it's okay. So like mother of the bride, who's, I mean, yes, working in full service, a lot of the times we are just working with parents. So they have no idea what they're going into or what they're getting themselves into. So yeah, it's just a great resource for clients, for planners, obviously for venues to showcase and cut down on their hours that they're either in the office if they, have a chance to work hybrid, or just like cut down on hours that might, it might be that 50% that doesn't want to book, or just ends up not booking or whatever.
It's just a good filter.
Yeah.
To help qualify the leads.
So with kind of like Wedding Scout, the idea of itself and or like how it started out, like did it start off as one thing and evolve over time into what it is today? Can you tell me about the original part of it?
Yeah, of course. I think most small businesses do, and from all the research I've done and podcasts I listen to and all of that, the key to success with small businesses is just to be open to the sort of fluidity to see how it does change and grow, because the world we live in, and it's only going to get crazier with AI, is just changing so quickly. So without a doubt, original concept was more to be a tool used by venues. I always wanted it to be free to the end user. That goes back to like my political background, of just wanting accessibility, right? But I'm now giving more attention and care towards the true end user, being the clients. And then there's these other groups too. It was shocking to me how many wedding planners use our site. We have about 3,000 new unique users to the site every month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
And so trying to get a handle on exactly who that is and what market that represents is a little tricky, of course, but it's really exciting and fun. So
Hey, but that's really impressive.
thank you.
Yeah, that's really
It is really impressive. Yes.
Yeah, my main thing, and this would be valuable just to share with other industry professionals, but our target is a little bit different than like yours as a DJ or a videographer, right? We have to get those clients pretty much the second they're engaged, or preferably even before, because really the first big decision out the gate is venue. Like you're going to have a venue and a date before you book a DJ, right? And wedding planners kind of have a similar problem. But I've noticed since 2020 that I know that we get twice as much traffic from Pinterest than Instagram and Facebook combined.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think what happened, this is my own personal like armchair theory, is that when, I'll just say mostly girls, but when couples get engaged, they're focused on the things that are tangible and real to them. So engagement rings, dresses, hair, makeup, bridesmaids dresses. They've already thought through their honeymoon outfits before they're even thinking about their venue, because it's what's normal to them.
Yeah.
And so where do you do that? Pinterest. Like Pinterest is more of the search engine that gives you, it's a search engine that gives you ideas, whereas Instagram is more stalking. Right? So, truly though, like when it's time to hire your florist, you're going to stalk
like
the
what are they doing on a daily
that
basis
you're interested in, and like get to know them. And to an extent, wedding planner. I know 36th Street gets a lot of our clientele through Instagram. So I think that when brides, and again, I want to be like gender neutral and sensitive, but still statistically, brides are playing around through Pinterest to get ideas and inspiration. And then once they kind of get the basics, that's when they go to Instagram for the stalking. That's my opinion.
Okay. I like that. I like that idea.
So we've just put a lot more like, just like money and attention into like grabbing those eyeballs on Pinterest, but also just SEO. SEO cannot be overstated.
Sure.
So 60% of our traffic is just SEO.
That's crazy.
That's Googling
crazy.
Wedding venues, Austin.
And when I initially think of because as the DJ side of things, I'm not really thinking about how much a venue costs. I'm not thinking about all the different things that involve. So when I wrote the script talking about venues, I was like, what's probably. I don't know. People probably care about the style the most, about what they're doing, if they're getting into for a venue. Like, is it ranch looking? Is it, is it modern, barn or something like that, like Bar Mansion is. And then Ren, he was telling me a minute ago, she's like, that's actually probably not the best way to look at it. She has 3 S's that and I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that. But essentially, what are the biggest things that people need to consider when looking at a venue, first of all?
I think you have so much to figure out when you're first engaged. And so if you can just like sit for a minute and like breathe and think about season, size, and source. So
Three S's:
the three
season,
S's.
size, and source.
And then talking to you, I realized how easy it would be to add a fourth S of style. But
Style, like in parentheses.
yeah, parentheses style.
Maybe still.
But the thing with style is, I think that would have been more applicable even 5 years ago. But right now, if you look at all the venues around town, first off, a lot of the new venues are white. Like they're hip to what everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
And the venues, Jodi just came here from the Grand Lady. They have an original cool old Victorian house and then built a new venue on property that's like modern and chic and really cool. And you can see that at a lot of venues throughout town, right?
Big, beautiful windows, wood floors,
Exactly.
something like that.
Exactly. And then, really every new venue now. Think about the Arlo, Woodbine Mansion. They're just all like big, pretty white buildings.
Yes.
So I think that to an extent, that's part of why it's changed a little bit as far as not getting too stuck into style per se. And then also if you think about, I still hear, because we do one-on-one planning with people to help them just find their venue, not one-on-one wedding planning, just like one-on-one scouting. And the one thing I do still hear is, I don't want a ballroom wedding. Okay, but time out. Like, we're not talking about your grandma's ballroom, right? Today we are here at the Line Hotel. Their ballroom is hardwood floors, floor to ceiling glass, wrap around.
Beautiful space.
Overlooking the hike and bike trail, it's not your grandma's ballroom.
Yeah.
And so I can say that about here. I can say that about South Congress Hotel. Really, the hotels also have kind of stepped it up a bit. So for that reason, I think that style is a little less important. That's why I prefer to focus right out the gate on season first, picking a date.
Yep.
So I think it's important to talk to your family. Are both of your parents teachers? Maybe we should get married in the summer. Is football like a religion in your family? Maybe we shouldn't do the fall, So really just kind of picking that season and trying to be flexible. Yes, when you're in a hot area like Austin, most of the good venues do get booked out a year in advance, period. It's just the reality. We've been here for 5 years. It's not changing.
Oh yeah, and I want to say that it is hot. Like we
hot.
shot the first episode of the podcast.
Oh,
And
you
it
mean
was,
hot?
Yeah, hot. It is hot. It is hot. No, we shot the first episode. I remember saying like, oh, it's good old temperatures right now. It's not even bad yet, but like season is so important now. I tell people, like, if you want to be comfortable at your wedding, don't do the summertime. And that starts like at the end of May, goes till maybe October now sometime.
Yeah.
So it really is seasonal. I really feel passionate about that.
Well, yeah, and then with the flip side of that, understanding though what benefits you have if you are flexible to be inside.
Oh, true, yeah.
And
Or an off season.
which would be summer. So if you're flexible to be inside during the summer and have a pretty ballroom, you could probably get a $5,000 meeting room rental waived or something because it's going to be sitting there empty.
Especially an indoor space like the Line Hotel where you're doing the ceremony, everything indoors, reception. It's like you don't really have to worry about that. But for venues when you're outside and back and forth, it's like, oh my gosh, this is unexpectedly hot or whatever.
Yeah.
But the market is also hot as well.
The market is hot and the temperatures are hot. No, and I think, while we're still talking about season, though, it does hurt my heart a little bit when people put all of their eggs in the perfect wedding
into like 4 months of the year.
Yeah. My wedding date was November 6th. Obviously, you guys know how type A and weirdo I am about data. I interviewed the state climatologist.
Why are we just finding this out? Why is this just a fact
I
that
love
we're...
that you did that.
I was working for the
amazing.
Natural Resources Committee at the Texas Senate, and I had some connections, and I talked to them. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing.
early November is the best date for weather. With that said, there's still, we've had crazy shit shows and perfect, fall.
Yeah.
I will say that May is the rainiest season. People go to May a lot because I feel like nationally May and June are supposed to be, I think it's like the movies even make it out to be like May and June are so great.
Sure.
Not here. So, I do have opinions about season, but at the same time, I don't think you should put all your eggs in that basket because things go wrong. I would much prefer you have a venue that can work in any season. And when I do one-on-one scouting, if somebody's open to a winter wedding, I push them there for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Winter weddings are amazing in Austin. You could get glorious weather.
Maybe February still scares me here.
would
I
say
feel
February.
like we have.
Oh
had a
yes,
couple
the ice
freezes.
storms.
But February scared. But even though I would love to be able to say, because even in DC, that's a hands-off date, hands-off month, because and even actually early March is
You gotta
because
just
of
get ready for the cherry blossoms.
yeah, exactly. And so, but it's like, but you have the off chance that it could be a great, just chilly, cool day.
I guess I meant more like December, early January.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I've seen
No,
some amazing
Yes.
weddings in December
and actually
and January.
I think it's mild and you can be outside.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very personal decision more than like global, right? Because I think people associate that with holidays. They don't want to put one more thing on someone's schedule.
That's true.
But there is a lot of availability and
A lot of savings and a lot of leverage in negotiating with your vendors.
Yes, negotiation ability for sure.
Yeah.
No, I think holiday dates are an interesting, like, avoiding mistake type thing because people think that New Year's Eve just is another cause for celebration, not knowing how much more they'll have to pay for their wedding to make that happen.
Yep.
But for that reason
Yep.
alone, people don't even, and if vendors are even available because they don't want to send their teams out. And they don't, I mean, I did a New Year's Eve wedding last year and it was very difficult to even find vendors that I shouldn't say that, but
Or in
that
town
were,
or
or
open
not,
to
or
booking.
maybe not, exactly, open to booking. There was, I think people were available. I think they decided they did not want to travel or
It's a dangerous time to travel.
yeah, and I get it. But then for those, of course, that, could take it on, the fees, there's some sort of inflated fee.
Well, from a practical perspective, you've just lost all leverage. You have no leverage to negotiate.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Not only.
Oh, you don't.
We,
You
we,
take
we
everything
immediately
you
charge
get.
25% more
More.
for New Year's Eve events just because it's
Yeah.
like, how am I
The
going to tell
extra
these guys, like,
hassle.
you're going to miss New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
your major holiday for yourself?
Yeah. No. I think
It
makes
is.
a lot of
It's a really good point, and I mean, I think I did put it in one of like the episodes like outline. It's like so important for like knowing your major holidays. That's why I loved how the Wedding Scout had like the calendar of must know dates because a lot of people they're just like, oh yeah, whatever. Like the second week of April is great, right? Like no
Yeah.
no wait, hold on,
Yeah.
22nd of April. Oh my gosh, but
No, my worst story on that, and I mean, as a wedding planner, you typically know the dates. We all know ACL and F1,
Yeah.
and anytime any of those big dates are released, we're all texting each other, and we all know.
Yeah.
But then there's these things that sneak up on you. I had a wedding one year at South Congress Hotel, and it was actually the Friday. They were going to go just downtown, like we're right here at the Line Hotel, just across South Congress over to their rehearsal dinner downtown. And my phone blew up. I was still at South Congress Hotel. We had just finished the rehearsal. Everything went well. The buses were there to pick up. And they were 2 hours late to their rehearsal dinner, going 2 miles.
No.
Because it was Rot Rally. And nobody knew. The hotel didn't know. The hotel was, frustrated. And,
Yeah.
But I guess there are certain rules that you have to do to even be able to close off streets and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I guess Rot Rally, shockingly, didn't follow those rules. So nobody knew about it, but it was just all these motorcycles. And and then
Oh,
even the
my
next
gosh.
day at their wedding, being an outdoor wedding, we sent interns out to the street with like $20 bills just to like, I don't know, like bat your eyelashes and give money away to like turn off your motorcycle.
Oh, no.
Because it was so loud.
Yes. That's a
Oh,
nightmare.
Those
my
horrible
gosh.
like the Harleys,
That's
we were
a
trying
nightmare.
to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just one example of knowing your dates.
Yeah. And
Rot Rally.
that is really
Woo.
important.
And that's kind of too, for the season. Like I never even considered those things as well. And we'll get to that later when we talk about running the numbers and
We
all that
just
good
got
stuff.
through 1S.
We've only been through one S. That's correct. So there was size, of course, which is obvious.
Season was first.
Season
but I
was
would say,
first.
yeah, I mean, size is tricky too, though, right?
Yeah.
Because again, going back to, I didn't know this would be like a thread of our conversation, but you're right. Like there's these national standards. We all get on Google and ChatGPT, and the internet tells us what we're supposed to think. But and this is what I kind of love about Scout is that it's not just regional. It's like city. I
Yes.
mean, we were
Yep.
grassroots on the ground. And so if you Google what percentage of your guest count is going to attend, it's 80% pretty much across the board.
Yeah, that's usually what.
But in Austin, it's so much higher.
Yeah, it's a destination.
It's a destination wedding spot.
What's the theory on that? Destination wedding, people want to visit.
People just love Austin and want to come here.
They want to make a weekend of it.
But it's also that it's central. So whether your friends are East Coast or West Coast, it's really not that expensive or long of a flight.
Yeah.
We also have Canada and Mexico to consider. So we are like just literally central. And I think that other larger cities that are central have potential to be wedding destinations. They just have crap weather. And in the opposite direction, I guess, right? Like, you know, Michigan is, you know, not going to be
right, because like here,
year-round.
even though yes, it gets hot, for the most part, there's not going to be weather that delays.
It's not a huge shift.
Yeah, it's not going to be. It's not going to cancel flights. And, you know.
Yeah.
We don't have a hurricane season.
We don't have a snow season.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just don't get the spoilers away.
Oh my gosh. No, it's a Hurricane Lee right now, and my little boy, who's a 5-year-old, who is a Tasmanian devil hurricane, his name is Lee.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So everybody's texting me like, "Do you know that hurricane is Lee?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know." But yeah, we don't have any of that. So I think for that reason, people prioritize traveling to Austin. So I always advise my clients to assume 90% guest retention.
90% guest retention is very
Worst
interesting.
case scenario, you're 85, and
Yeah.
now you have a little bit of money back. But it really stinks at the end because you don't really get those final numbers and the final budget and the final payments until like 2 weeks out.
Oh my
Yeah.
So
gosh.
2 weeks before your wedding, you're having all these final numbers come in, and if you're already tight on your budget, it can really rock your world.
Yeah.
So, but also like back to starting out, season, size, and source. So size to pick your venue, you need to know your approximate size.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really important in this city because,
Yeah.
because a lot of, now that I would say larger weddings, like 150 or to 200, if not even more than that, have fully returned. And, that limits your venues immediately here.
Oh, yeah.
For the longest time, Austin really sat sweet. And again, this goes back to when I was going to build a wedding venue. I did so much research on this. 180 is the sweet spot. The vast majority
I would say
of venues are
175. So
180.
exactly.
Yeah. And there, you know, when you're going to build a venue, you want to build to that sweet spot. You don't want to spend all this extra money on construction and stuff, right? So over the history of Austin, I feel like 180, with the exception of the hotels who do conferences and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
180. But, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
I was
think
just
that
saying,
the
like,
demographics are
the
changing.
reason, so focusing, providing that resource where someone could walk into a relatively large space and say, I can absolutely accommodate my 200, 225 that I'm thinking
Which
I'll
seemed
have.
large back in 2015 or so. I was like, well, that's a large size.
It's a big
Yes. But that's most of what I'm going to...
Most of what we're fielding
Most
now.
of what we're fielding now. Yeah, it's not just me.
But don't you think part of that's the demographics of the city? I think
Sure.
that we're seeing a lot more Asian, Indian,
Mexican.
Persian, Mexican.
Yeah, there's a diversity that wasn't here, that we didn't see as much before, which I absolutely love. The merging of cultures, which brings that as well, because everyone, people want to celebrate. But then but yes, when you're bringing in certain ethnicities, it automatically, boosts that.
Culturally, they just have bigger weddings.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
just not going to change. That's just not going to change.
Till 4 a.m.
And that's what,
and
people,
they come to
vendors
Austin,
don't expect that.
and they're like, wait, 150 guest count, and we have to be done at 1?
Yeah.
You know?
We have to be out by 11?
Yeah.
Like, we have the place till midnight. What do you mean?
But that's why I think in terms of the resources or the resource with Wedding Scout is that, if people are just doing the research on their own, I really, because also when a venue is explaining capacity, they're explaining max capacity, but
comfortable
not
capacity.
adding a dance
That's a
floor,
good
not
point.
adding a table for a
Yes.
DJ even.
Yes.
Or buffet.
yeah.
Or, you really, when you talk to a venue about capacity, before you book the venue at least, you need to ask for layouts. And I would push you to ask for a layout based on your service of food, because if you're doing buffets or stations, it's going to take a lot more square footage up. It's going to eat square footage. If you're going to have a DJ or a band, that changes your square footage.
That's exactly why I've been telling Nick. I'm like, I think like the food and then entertainment.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're like, well, we have a band and we have to have this stage. I'm like, did you look at the space at all? Like,
Oh my
it
gosh,
does not
yes.
fit
I
at
know.
all.
It's scary.
Yes, I'm thinking of so many venues right now where I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not going to work. I don't know how do you make that work, but yeah.
I don't want to obviously throw any venues under the bus, but with Wedding Scout, it's tricky because I really want couples to be able to go on our site and compare venues. It's like the whole concept, right? But I'm also relying to an extent on venues to give me data that they want, put out there.
Yeah.
And I've had to push back. As a wedding planner, I've had to say, no, like 220 doesn't fit there. I've tried it. It is bad. Like I'm not, because at the end of the day too, Wedding Scout it's me. It's my face. It's us now too. Sorry, but like it's just my voice. It's my face. Like my name is on the line. So if you're telling me that 220 is your guest count, but I've done weddings at your venue several times.
And it's
like,
never worked.
never worked.
That is hilarious.
But
oh
I
my
do
gosh.
have to push back a
That's
little
the
bit,
experience
but-
you bring to
Yeah.
the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to think so. So that's why I say, like, before you book a venue, there's a couple things, but don't just go based on like an F&B minimum. You need a real estimate based on your guest count, based on how many apps you want, based on the food service you want, based on the bar package, based on if you want cake served, based on if you want bags delivered to your guest rooms.
Yeah.
Just try to think through everything to get that estimate to make sure it works for your budget, and also ask for a realistic layout of a wedding of your size.
And I also think it's really good to be completely honest about that too, because when people are when people sugarcoat like, yeah, you can kind of do 200 in there. I'm like, no, you need to like you said, like 200 does not work there as anybody from the couples that I've met, the couples that I worked with, they will always go over your your frankness, like how honest you are. They love that.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the couple is saying, oh, well, I bet so-and-so will not come. I bet so, you know what I mean?
Yep,
so it's actually going like from the, like both sides, right? I'm sure it's not going to rain. Like everybody just has
their expectations. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because the final S of the situation is based on budget. Who's the source going to be? Who's paying?
Yeah, the hardest.
And I can't imagine. Like I haven't been married myself, so I haven't had to talk about this with anyone. But talking with parents, talking with your significant other, like laying it out on the table, like this is what's going to be. I'm sure that's a difficult conversation to have, but you have to have it.
And welcome to marriage. If you can't have those conversations now, good luck. You know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, maybe that sounded too harsh, but
no, it's the harsh reality.
But it's like you have to know in order for us to do our jobs, right? I mean, like you can't to know what the contributions are, and early on, so that we can paint the best picture for what your day is going to look like. And I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is
it's super awkward.
Yeah, it
just
is.
has to be
Oh
done.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first got engaged, I don't know how my parents would feel about this, but it was 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, who cares? But they were like, we're going to give you $20,000. I was 27 years old, and I was like, $20,000. Oh my God. It got eaten up like that. Like, not like
Nothing.
gone. And then Matt's parents gave us some money too, and we were like, wow, gone. You know, I mean, it's crazy. And so I also, I mean, there's so many reasons why I started Wedding Scout, but I mean, that's kind of one of them too, is parents, fiancés, everybody, like the numbers are there. You can click on 100 guests and see exactly what it should cost for stage, valet, food and beverage, venue fee. It's laid out. And then you can use your own imagination for how much you want to spend on things like photographer and DJ and flowers. Like that, the venue doesn't determine that. But anything that the venue determines, I'm really committed to keeping that as accurate as possible because it is so uncomfortable and difficult to discuss that I would just like to kind of make it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
And easier for wedding planners too, because people come in there with these really big ideas. And we spend a lot of time, again, pro bono, like you're not really getting paid for this time, just educating your client.
Yeah.
Just like getting your client to this place where they can understand. I mean, I have a date night this weekend with my husband at Eberly. I mean, I'm not going in there expecting to spend less than $200. I mean, if you think about appetizers, multiple cocktails, dinner, dessert, there's no way we are going to leave without spending $200. So let's think $100 a person. Well, then on top of that, somebody's paying for like entertainment throughout the night, a DJ or a band, and potentially like busing to get there. So if you're going into an event thinking you're going to spend anything less than $100 a person, like take them to McDonald's.
That's a great point right there.
know?
Yeah.
And you definitely see it more beneficial when your guests or your couples come in more educated and they already know everything. That way it's already like, okay, we can talk about this. You don't have to ease them into anything versus somebody coming in and saying, I don't know what's up. Teach me.
Right.
And go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it helps for our relationship and the fluidity of the, because part of the reason in the grand scheme of things someone brings on a planner is, yes, to have the education and the experience, but also to enjoy your engagement. So setting expectations, setting expectations early on, which is that budget component, is so important, because that just like makes it, so seamless and perfect and easy, right? But
everything's just easy after that.
But no, but it's that hump that has to, like, you have to get over early on.
And here's the tricky thing with venues, just while we're on this, like, educating people who aren't accustomed to the industry. So two major categories of venues are standalone venues, which could also include like museums and stuff like that, versus hotels.
Yep. And
I only mention that because hotels almost exclusively work off of an F&B minimum, whereas standalone venues is typically a venue fee. So right out the gate, if you're trying to compare budgets and you don't really know how these systems work, your brain can just feel super scrambled and confused.
Yeah.
Such a good point.
And like rightfully so, right? And I don't think that any of it's really intended to be trickery. It's just like different ways of running businesses.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and this is a really cool thing about Wedding Scout, so you can go to the Line Hotel and put in 150 guests. And I think off the top of my head, it's your F&B is probably going to be around like 35,000, which when you're signing a contract right out the gate, you just got engaged and you're like, 150 guests, 35,000, food and beverage, oh my God. What else, but so much of your expenses are locked into that. And the cool thing about Wedding Scout is then you can go look at another venue that you might be interested in, Grand Lady, just because Jodi just left from there. They have like a much different venue fee, and you can bring in your own caterer and all of that. And so all of these numbers feel much more tangible. But at Wedding Scout, if you go and compare from one tab to another with the same guest count, you can see that at the end of the day, they're actually about the same amount of money. Once you take into account busing, once you take into account a rain plan, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so as a wedding planner, that's like kind of the thing that kept me up at night. I'm actually like a serial entrepreneur. I've had so many business ideas. This one just like stuck in my soul because I felt like it would actually be a really good tool for not just venues, but couples, clients who don't know what the heck they're doing.
And we were talking about it earlier too. It's like, I can't believe that it's not more prevalent of people like, like yourself, who are looking for that data. They're data driven and they want to know what is the price on this. I just want to compare stuff, because at the end of the day, like you're saying, like it like some amount of budget is going to make or break the decisions that you want to make for your own wedding. That's really interesting.
Yeah. It's really fun to kind of toggle between the two. And that, I can't remember if I talked to you about it today or not, but Jodi and I have both worked for 36th Street Events for a long time now, and we do a lot of weddings at both Laguna Gloria and the Four Seasons, and it's so fascinating to me because they're such different venues. But if it rains and you're doing $14K worth of tents at Laguna Gloria, your wedding at the end of the day is going to be the same price as it would have been at Four Seasons, right? Like it depends on so much. And I think that at the end of the day, when picking between a venue that's a little bit more turnkey and safe versus kind of having, and let me tell you, on a pretty day, Laguna Gloria is pure magic, like Disney princess magic. It's so amazing. But, we're all like on this scale of like risk aversion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're entrepreneurs, so like obviously we're a bit more risk takers. But for my clients who are risk averse and who are sensitive to all of that, I'm like, like, keep it simple, stupid, you know, just like,
Yeah.
like, let's just, you know, make your wedding day perfect and not take any risks. But if you're like a real risk taker and like, I can roll with the punches, then let's do it.
Right.
That's such a great point right there, because I feel like people get tricked. It's almost like it's a game, and you want to know the rules to the game that are in place, and you're kind of exposing, I mean, not exposing it, but you're showing what the rules are for everyone clearly, and it's laid out. That's why, I mean, especially with kind of the whole like run the numbers that each of the pages of Wedding Scout does, it's really cool too. Thinking about all the things that you had no idea even talking about. I remember seeing things like tinting, and being like, oh yeah, you just put a tint up, and then it's like, wait, how it costs what much money? Like, come on. But let's talk.
Other venue.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because like really, what does Wedding Scout, like when you go to there? What are the major things that you're going to be looking for that's going to be illuminating these rules of the game, if you will?
Sure.
Yeah, I would say for the end user, like the client, the couples who are looking to get married, I would say the biggest thing is the run the numbers. So where you can pick your actual guest count and see what things are going to cost. But also it's just the virtual tour. I mean, so the reason it's called Wedding Scout, Scout actually stands for the 5 chapters that we cover. So it's every video is less than 15 minutes, and we cover service, capacity, outdoors, utilities, and travel. Every venue.
Love it.
So it's, you know, methodical and like something that you can actually wrap your brain around. So I think that, you know, knowing your budget, I mean, it kind of goes back to those basics of like the season, size, and source.
I was gonna quote you with the simple stupid.
Oh my God. Season, style, source, sometimes style, keep it simple, stupid.
Simple and stupid.
The 5 S's. That's right.
Or, yeah,
You know what's so funny? Okay, so going back though to when I was about to launch a venue, my dad and some of his friends were going to help us with investors and stuff. And it's just funny that you mentioned this, because when we were on the computer to figure out the state name and all of that, our sort of umbrella company was going to be the 6 Ps. And everybody was like, what are the 6 Ps? And I was like, you haven't heard this. I grew up on the 6 Ps.
Never heard of it.
Oh.
Never heard of it. No.
Wow.
Do tell.
Yeah,
Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Wow. Wow. I'm
That's-
surprised I haven't heard that.
Yeah, my dad raised me on that, and now I'm a type A, hyper anxious
Planner.
wedding planner. Planner.
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
Thanks,
easy with
Dad.
that stutter there, sir. I have a speech impairment stutter.
Do you?
He was like,
Oh, I did.
Double A, I have not noticed.
It's, a lot of therapy.
Good for you.
That's
Thank
healthy
you.
though. Therapy's good.
I need therapy for other reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to kind of like what we were like run the number situation. I remember seeing like the kind of the major topics too, where it's like service, outdoors, utilities, travels, and there's subcategories of that too. But there's so much to consider. That's what my point is. Like there's so much to consider when looking at a venue. It's not just, oh wow, that's pretty. Let's get it. It's so much more. Would you mind talking about that kind of the once again the subtopics?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise that hits people is rain plan. If you're not getting married at a hotel or a place that has like a perfect, I mean, honestly, few places have a quote unquote perfect rain plan. I mean, there's a couple.
Sure.
Yeah,
but,
and I love those places so
I know.
much.
But then there's also places that are actually really perfect and amazing for tents. So I'm not going to like, you know, frown on tents, because we have done some incredible tent weddings.
Yeah.
I will say you kind of need a healthy budget for it to make it really work. But Windermere Farms is a new venue in San Marcos that we have on our site. And if you want a Sperry tent wedding, it is like gorgeous. Drift House, Greenwood.
Yeah.
I'm like
The Greenhouse of Driftwood? Yeah.
Thank you. And you know what makes a good tent wedding is really having the ground cover. So they have a tent pad. It's actually originally an old tennis court that they recovered, but to be able to you have to like step up on it, which is important when it's raining, because you're not like, you know, the water runs
Oh my
off.
gosh, yes, I've been
But
part
they
of
have
one
all
of those.
the anchors and all of that, right? So, and they've got the restrooms nearby. That's a venue that's really good for tents. The Four Seasons Hotel has the fake turf. So any place that has like fake turf is great for a tent, because if you have drainage and all of that stuff. So
Shout out to Woodbine.
Woodbine is a great example. And they have a tent pretty much included in your price, I believe, during the winter months, as does Allen House. So
Yeah.
there are.
Oh, yeah, Allen House too, yeah.
If you really want that tent wedding aesthetic, you just need to like find those venues that are good for tents.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just put a tent in a field. I mean,
Right.
I've done it and regretted it many a times.
Because that's not really a rain plan either. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you know, so.
A real rain plan takes into account drainage in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention, there's also this whole problem with rain plans and lightning. I mean, luckily,
Oh,
knock
my
on
God.
wood, I have not dealt with that quite yet. But I mean, at the end of the day, you put 200 people in a tent in a storm, not smart. I mean, we have $1 million
no
insurance
way.
policy, but I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
What do we do?
Yeah.
so that's tricky too. But again, I don't want to like, you know, poo-poo on tents. Tents are fantastic. But you do need to do it correctly. You need
It's
to
a
get your
whole different
permitting.
element, yeah.
I would never, ever, ever, ever do a tent wedding without like an established wedding planner.
Yeah.
Because the permits, I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. The lighting is more complicated
Yeah.
based on the style and frame. The install's more complicated. It's just all more complicated. But if you have the money for it, it's magical.
Yeah.
Great points about that. The
No,
rain plan.
no clear tents except for winter, right? You can't do a clear tent in Texas.
Oh my gosh, I can't
But
imagine.
it's got to be the
I
right
can't imagine.
time of year.
I
Has
just
to be the right time
I
of
just
year.
know too. I've done a tent cocktail hour that was on turf or grass. I think it was like a golf course or something. And it had just rained before, and then they put the walls up around it. So when you
Yikes.
went in the tent, it was like being
sauna?
inside of a sauna. Yes, it was insane. And like I had no idea. But then I remember seeing people can do now options with like adding heaters in and
Yeah.
Sure.
doing cooling AC or
Yeah.
something like that too. So there are solutions to problems that arise, of
Yes.
course.
I mean,
but-
I'll say typically in Texas, unless you're in one of these crazy ice storms that we have once a year now, I guess.
Which we did have. We both had a wedding.
Oh, well, I mean, we
November
could talk.
18th.
We could talk bad weather stories for an
Is it?
hour.
We
Isn't
really
it
could.
weird that you remember specific
Of
days?
course, when
like
it's
the
that
date,
bad. Oh yeah.
but not like your wedding anniversary.
That's true.
I'll be like, yeah, I have to make sure I don't book a wedding on my wedding anniversary. I have to look.
Oh, I don't have a choice.
have to
November
look.
6th. Oh, we're screwed. Matt's birthday's in June. My birthday's in April. My kids' birthdays are November. Our anniversary's November. We just like celebrate everything
Yeah.
6 months later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, tent weddings are amazing. I wouldn't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And then really there's so many things to consider for that outdoor stuff. We said tinning, but heating and cooling, sound and lighting for some places like that, especially outdoors. As a DJ, it can be tough to do these outdoor spaces where there's maybe not be power nearby at all, and
Yeah.
you're having to worry about generators or cord running. And then for the space itself, how large is it? Like if you want music to be played in a large space and you have some string musicians, people probably aren't going to hear them more than like 50 feet away, and then you're just kind of wasting that outdoor usage. So especially for the ceremony itself, like what about microphones? What about the wind? I can't tell you how many weddings I've been a part of where like we're on like a windswept terrace or something like that, and I can only do my best to regulate these microphones, and it's just, it's like they.
That's a great
And I'm over there like
representation of that.
sweating, being like, no, please just stop the wind for once. But no, it's such a big undertaking of having outdoor situation that people don't take into account. And then I could go on for like we said, for too many stories and too long about the outdoor conditions that we've been a part of. But
I think one thing I do want to put in on that is like, I wish every venue just make sure they have power for their outdoor ceremony spots.
Yeah.
Some venues have like 3 outdoor spots for their ceremonies, but no power for
that's a
for
classic
any of
one
the
for us
DJs,
too as a
any of the
DJ.
speakers or anything
Yeah.
like that. We're like, okay, cool. Now we have to run 150 feet of cord
Yeah.
to run
Yeah.
power out here.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, at least when we're doing weddings for 36th Street events or for et cetera, for the most part, I pretty much demand is the same as require, but require that our clients either use their DJ or band or our like technical lighting company.
Yeah,
If we
yeah.
have a
Yeah.
real good lighting company.
Yeah.
Because you need somebody that is like somewhat of a sound engineer, right?
Yeah.
Because it gets tricky. And I mean, I know you know this, but my understanding at least is that lapels are even the most sensitive for ceremonies. And so if we're doing an outdoor ceremony, I usually recommend having lapels, but also a handheld microphone.
Oh yeah.
just
That's
in
exactly
case.
what we do. Because So the lapel will pick up everything nearby, but it's really if the speaker's nearby, you could get interference, and there's so many things that can happen being outdoors. But I like especially use a handheld microphone as backup in case it's too windy, because you just will always want to have backups of everything, and really that's to me the most important part. But like even the lapel microphone, even the handheld microphone, some DJs will go out there and rent the cheapest model of microphone, and then it's going to sound terrible, or it doesn't make the connection, and you're having you get that one chance.
Yeah.
You get that one chance to be able to do it correctly.
I'm hearing like Eminem right now.
The one.
I get one shot.
One shot.
But no, that's why to me outdoors is such a big thing.
Hey, on the wind issue, which I always call wind the silent assassin. Like everybody looks at rain, and I'm like, I look at the wind before I look at the rain.
Totally.
But on that same issue with outdoor ceremonies, the veils. I have so
Thank you for
many
saying that.
photos.
Thank you for saying that.
Do not wear a long veil if
Don't
you're
do it.
getting married outside, especially on a hill. Don't do it.
The whole time, this motion. You look at your maid of honor and you're like, can you not do anything to help me?
Just take it off, or honestly, just don't wear it personally. Just save it for your photos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like photos after.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Often
Oh
than
my
not,
gosh.
I've had a couple brides who like had a veil shipped in from Italy, and then all of a
Oh,
sudden,
they're so expensive.
then all of a sudden we just got married. We're doing the cocktail, like, and then she's like, I forgot to wear.
veil.
No, I forgot to wear the veil.
Oh, yeah.
Is what I've seen.
yeah.
That's a classic one too.
Yeah, they didn't have a good wedding planner.
Oh, good point. But yeah, then the final piece that I did see that people always underestimate was that travel kind of to the venue and stuff of valet, buses and stuff. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
God.
Well, I guess it's, I do think this is something that's an easier conversation because in terms of fitting it into your budget, but it's also the first thing to get cut. Which is unfortunate because your guests have traveled, and then, so if you're going outside of Austin city limits or whatnot, and yes, to Wimberley or Dripping Springs, absolutely, you're going to have to include that as part of your budget.
But not everybody does.
But right, sure, you're right. But I guess, we think of it as the guest experience and the convenience and, providing the courtesy.
It's courtesy, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, when it comes down to it, if you're getting a couple charter buses or whatnot, and that's what, $5,000 or, whatever the case may be.
So, the most economical way of busing people long distance is the 56 passenger motor coaches.
Yeah.
Right. So then take your guest count. You can divide pretty easy by 50-ish. And they're about $2,000 each.
Yeah.
So when you're comparing venues, that's something you need to consider.
You should absolutely include it in your cost. Up front before you have to.
Because if you don't, and we've seen it time and time again, your guests leave early. There's, one of, typically I'd be drinking it on the dance floor, and my husband's like, let's get going, let's get back to the babysitter or whatever. Because you go into that night knowing, this isn't really a long-term party night. One of us is going to have to drive back.
Right.
Or even if you're close enough to Uber, maybe that's a little bit better.
Well, that's the other thing is that when you're not, and,
if you're outside of Uber,
if you're outside
range, you have to bus.
Yeah.
Or people are going to leave early and they're just not going to have as good of a time.
Or they're going to get stuck at the venue for an hour after it's
Waiting
closed.
for the Uber.
Yeah, and then they're asking random vendor friends to
Yeah.
give them a ride back to the city
I have
limits.
definitely seen that part, but I will put my 2 cents on the leaving early part. I think it's a cardinal sin when somebody leaves a wedding really early.
That's cute. I love that.
My thing,
Cardinal sin.
because my thing is this couple, like whether you realize it or not, they spend a lot of money to have this really grand party and DJ music, everybody there, like they want, and they invited you, they want you to be there. And when you leave early, I'm like, oh man, they just did all that like to have you celebrate this with them, and leaving within 10 minutes of everybody dancing, I'm like, oh man.
Oh, see, and Andrew, this is where this is probably a good therapy session because I'm opposite. I'm like, it's on me. It's a reflection of me. Oh my gosh. it's 10 o'clock and they're leaving. What did I not think of? What did I not do? We should have had like an activation station over here. Like we should have had.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Or like a lounge area that's comfortable if you don't want to be on the dance floor, to be able to go do something else, or you know.
Oh no, exactly. But just leaving early, regardless.
I'm
just like
they are dead.
I do love like. Now, I mean, in the weddings that we're having today, because like I think 5 years ago, I didn't see weddings with a whole bunch of other like midnight snacks where people bring in tacos or Whataburger or stuff like that, or they have these like
activation stations.
Yes,
I like that.
I like that too. When I heard that, I knew exactly what it was, but I was like, never heard that before. I love this, but yes, those, and I think it's great, and I think that's a great way to have people, and if you stay another 30 minutes, we're gonna have that coming right up. That's perfect.
Yeah. I'd have to give all that a little bit more thought. And maybe it's because I'm like aging and I have kids and stuff, and I'm like thinking about this New Year's Eve wedding that I have to go to soon.
I mean,
they better have an activation.
You better have an activation station to keep me there till midnight.
Activation station. I like that. You either have an activation station or you have a bus, apparently.
Exactly.
And people are going to stay either way.
It's going to be the same amount of money.
No,
actually it will, yeah.
Right. Well, it's interesting because in the first episode, I had no idea how much travel costs, and Ashley Colin-Rivera said it was around like $3,000 they were estimating for like transportation to Dripping Springs, 30 minutes away, which sounded like
your average wedding.
Sounded insane to me, honestly. I was like $3,000, but then the couple I just DJ'd for this previous weekend, they said they spent closer to like $10,000, $15,000 on transportation throughout the whole weekend that they had guests here.
Makes sense.
So it's like the range is really just wild in terms of what it could be, but it seems like from Wedding Scout's perspective, it has it that you can build it into it. It's not going to be a hidden fee later on that's just going to sneak up on you.
It's all out front. And also it changes. So, I mean, our cost calculations, I'm personally building and coding on the back end. So I get real specific. And it can be tricky. Like if you're a downtown-ish venue that would normally not bus this day and age with, traffic shares. Hello, what are they called? Car shares? Uber? What's Uber called?
Ride share.
Got it. Then you're still likely spending, $900 or so just to transfer mom's, dad's, grandma's wedding party. So I still build that in. So like if you went and looked at Laguna Gloria, you would still see $900 just for the wedding party.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want your wedding party to Uber, fine. But like, and that's the thing with our calculator. If you don't want it, you can click on it and it disappears and it changes the number. So you can like kind of pick what you want. If you go to Laguna Gloria and you're like, well, we're not going to have a band. We're going to have a DJ and we're going to use the existing dance floor. You can click on stage dance floor and it disappears from the budget and changes your end number. But my point is, for venues around here, it's still really nice to have the wedding party arrive early. And there is, I'm not trying to like plug a company, but we are all we're using Fetty now.
Oh, really?
The Fetty buses.
People were asking about that the other day.
To get the wedding party, just to get the wedding party to the venue.
Yeah.
I have yet to do like an entire wedding with Fetty, but like a wedding party to get to a venue is so much cheaper. But if you're going to do shuttles out to Dripping Springs or whatever, it's going to be an 8 to 10 hour contract commitment, which is going to be $2,000 and up.
And that's exactly, actually a good point as to why the transportation could be arranged, because you have to have a minimum number of hours for the most part. There are some that have 4-hour minimum, 6, but a lot
for the most part it's 8 hours on a
yeah.
Saturday.
Wow,
on a peak day.
And I think the couple I mentioned had done it for like the whole weekend, so like Thursday to Sunday they were doing it, but still, transportation, people come here, they think that just Uber, and maybe they're from like Chicago, New York, where public transportation is like feasible.
Right.
Where you come here, you're like,
a
woo,
whole other issue.
We ain't got any horses for rent.
Let's lobby. Right? Yeah, I know.
And the DJ is not going to give you a ride home.
Yeah.
His car is full.
Unless
Nick, you better stop that. There's people somewhere across the country that are believing, they do still use horses.
Yeah, that 100%. Yeah, we get that all the time.
Yes.
Every Texan can tell you that story.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't been on 6th Street late at night lately, but
the
5 years ago, they still had horses on 6th Street.
Oh, yeah, they do.
My family came to visit a few weeks ago and blew their minds when they saw like the 7-8 horses.
Have you heard why they do it?
Crowd control?
Yeah, well, it's just if you're on I don't however many hundreds of pounds, 1,000-pound horse, they can basically just like get a guy like almost in a chokehold. Like it's just, you have like the power to like.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's definitely crowd control. And when a horse, like if you're standing in the street and that horse bumps into you,
You're not going to.
That's like a car hitting you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're real drunk. To
Yeah,
fight
yeah,
back.
I've seen it happen. Okay, so back to our podcast here.
Yes, okay.
Aside from the 6th Street stuff. So we talked about kind of what's included on the website. There is a bunch of tools that are really useful that you can check out for yourself that we'll kind of mention on the line. But now we're going to talk about our segment, Pro Tips, where we talk about the things that you should be aware of. And the first thing we're going to start out is avoiding mistakes. So, of course, hire a planner. Like there is so many things can go bad on your day of if you don't hire a planner. I mean, I put it in my contract now because it is just so.
great.
Yes, it's so.
Because if not, it falls on you.
Exactly.
Like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I've done it too, where I've been the coordinator, but like there's so many things that I can't do behind the scenes that people think, oh, well, he's leading on the microphone. No.
Isn't
There's
he
so
just
many things
completely in
happening.
charge?
Yeah. So don't do it. But then really, I think the biggest thing, as we kind of touched on earlier, was knowing when your specific day is and what other local events are happening in the area. They have a calendar on Wedding Scout that it's like on one of the main tabs.
Yeah.
That's like, look at the most important dates that are happening in your time. And there was things that I didn't even think about on there. We talked about Rot Rally is there as well. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. You don't even think about how 6th Street's going to be closed off.
All the marathons.
Such a good, all the marathons.
The traffic. I mean,
Well, exactly, because the dates that people think are the nice date, the weather-friendly dates, are the dates that everyone wants to be here as well.
The
So
marathon
it's-
people and C3 events are looking at the exact same weather
Yeah.
predictions
Yeah.
that you are.
They're consulting with the meteorologists,
Yeah, they
the
are.
climatologists.
Climatologist. Who even knew that was a thing?
Right. That's awesome that you did that. I love that. But yeah, so then kind of when clients are, signing that contract and looking into, locking in with the venue, I'm sure a lot of people are just like stars in their eyes, or they get sticker shock, one of the two, right? But they're signing. And I tell people every time they do book with us, with my company, please read the contract. Go through the contract and read your contracts. We talked about that before on the podcast. But what major mistakes should couples avoid when doing the contract signing and all that?
We can talk about a lot of them, of course. I think one of the really big ones right now that, again, we do one-on-one venue scouting. And something that comes up a lot is this whole F&B minimum thing. Because I think that it, just confuses people.
Yeah.
And it's a term that you don't really know outside of the industry. And if you're going to have a large wedding, I don't think that F&B minimum matters quite as much for you. But if you're going to have a smaller wedding, it really does. Forgive me, did we already talk about this in person? I feel like we talked about stuff. Did we talk about this on podcast?
No.
Okay, good. So I'm like, oh my
You're
gosh,
good. You're good still.
You're
Yeah.
rehearsed and ready.
ready to go. Well, because it really is a complicated subject.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
even thinking, like, I could probably write like a 5-page blog on it because it's truly that complicated. But at the end of the day, with an F&B minimum, again, it's usually hotels, not standalone venues.
Yeah.
They need to be sure to allocate the right amount of resources and manpower and staffing to cover your event. They're often pulling from other departments of the hotel. So they have a number internally that they know for those dates that they need to match.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the base, right? And you're probably perfect to talk about this because you come from hotel world. But I think that if you're coming in with 250 people, the F&B minimum just isn't as important to you because you're likely going to fly past it.
Right.
And so if a hotel is trying to negotiate with you on F&B, then move on.
Yeah.
Now then, if you have 100 guests, then you're going to struggle to even meet that F&B minimum.
Sure.
So
Yep,
if you can
yep.
get them to bring the F&B minimum down, you're in a better situation. A really practical, easy example would be the Line Hotel. If you were to do bar and buffet and dessert and 3 appetizers and multiply that by 100 guests, you're going to come under their standard 18 to 24K F&B minimum. So going in this, you need to know what's going to be required of you to hit that 18K mark. You're going to need to come in with some late night stacks. And you're going to need to come in with like a more premium bar.
Yeah,
that type
champagne
of stuff.
pour, something like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
So in that situation, don't hyper focus on the F&B. Instead, ask for like a more specific estimate. Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what I was going to add to that was just maybe not so much asking of them, but you see the or like your venue manager, but you see the inclusions, right? But those inclusions, like tables, chairs, maybe a stage, maybe a dance floor, depending on hotel
Yeah.
versus standalone venue. There is so much value in those. So if you have a chance to, because like a stage can be $1,000.
Yeah, very typical.
So, and there's plenty of hotels that do not charge for it. There are some that do. But that is really something to consider because again, I mean, you can't cut that if you have a band. Like you don't put the band
Or
up,
you shouldn't.
or you
and
shouldn't.
A DJ
yes.
for that matter. I'm tired of DJs being on the floor.
Yeah.
I do 8x8
that's totally
risers
fair.
for DJs all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true too, because like some DJs are showing up with like a small mixer and nothing to really see there. But the ones that are skilled and they've got some entertainment value with them, you got to put them on a stage so people can see what's going on, or else they're just a part of the crowd.
Right.
Same concept, like we do a hybrid act, or we have a drummer and saxophone stuff like that. But like, we have to be on a stage, or else you're not getting the effect of the entertainment. You're not seeing what you're paying for.
If you're not the 12 people closest to the DJ or the band, you're not seeing the
exactly.
DJ.
And I think a lot of, to speak on the stage situation, is like I've even seen a lot of standalone places that now have the stage or the facade or anything as a part of their rentals too, which was like not a thing even 5 years ago. So it is definitely evolving in that.
Yeah.
And as a videographer, I can tell you, like and for the photos as well.
Oh,
the
so
shots,
much better.
The shots that you get of the people dancing next to the stage, from above the stage. When you have the bride and the groom, or bride and groom, sitting in front of the of the stage, rocking out to the drummer, to the DJ, it looks like you have your own concert.
Yes, it does. That is a great point.
And it's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And it's so great. And it's really awesome when the couple gets on stage and they rock out like that. That is so cool. But last point to that, it's also really good for the DJ whenever the couple has their playlist, but when a guest or someone's cousin comes up, like, hey, can you play they have their playlist.
Keep them away.
Oh, you have the space barrier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, because people don't want to get that up on the stage and be
That's so true.
I love it for that
That's
reason
a
as a
really
DJ.
good point.
Boards and stuff too.
Yes, you want to keep people away from that. Yeah,
safety
for
hazard.
sure. And I think it just, especially like with the look of everything, how it's evolved for like DJs used to have these big block speakers and put them on stands, and now majority of the DJs that I see in our industry are using the very slim column speakers that looks beautiful. There's companies that has specifically all white equipment as well. So it's really crazy how everyone is adapting. Like you'll say, it's very quickly adapting and evolving. And
Yeah.
I like that. Well, and on the point of like video and photos too, one of the things that we do with the wedding. So I don't know if you've seen a tour that we've done before, but it's not just like me giving a tour of a venue. It follows those 5 chapters, but it also shows a lot of before and after. So my goal was, here's the space on a Wednesday, as if you just like dropped in to see the space and take a tour with a venue manager.
Yeah.
And then here's 10 really awesome weddings, and like different like different layouts and different visuals and bands and DJs and so
that's really good.
Over 10 minutes of this video, you're like really getting to know the venue, but also seeing blank space, options, inspiration, ideas.
Yeah.
Blank
Lighting.
space.
I love that.
Lighting.
I love that.
Lighting is huge.
Yes.
I could talk about lighting.
So many couples are like, oh my God, we love the venue. I'm like, have you seen it at night though?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, because you see it at night, you're like, it's really dark in that corner. That's where you wanted the cake. So do you have anybody coming in with a lighting package?
If I only had $2,000 to spend, I would spend it on lighting before flowers.
Wow.
Powerful.
Controversial opinion. Sorry, Flores.
Lighting is so important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Because lighting can control a mood throughout the event, right?
Yes.
So my lighting for ceremony versus cocktail versus dinner versus party is completely different. And that's something to discuss with your venue, because a lot of that can be controlled. Hopefully you have a wedding planner, but when I come onto a venue, I know where all the controls are. I'm like back there with my little, you know, and you need to control the lighting throughout the night.
That's why I loved your walkthroughs as well, is because you were able to see the benefits of like that space blah by itself, like a conference room, to now it's a wedding, it's elegant, it looks beautiful once it does get dark, and that's just like I can't tell you how many times I've told people like, oh yeah, we can do uplighting for you, and they're like, well, you have any pictures? Like, yeah, I have some pictures. Let me go find that specific one. And
so
but it is really truly to me. I think it's about like the style that you're looking for of your wedding itself. Because I've had times where I'm like, listen, like once it gets dark in here in this venue, it gets dark, and then you can't see anything around the walls. You have these big beautiful walls that you can splash some color on. Like I am so passionate about lighting, but then there's some people who are like, no, we want it to feel like we're in a dark cave, and the photos look real, like just like all like clubby and stuff. And so it is kind of interesting how I think people look at lighting, because I don't think they know the benefits of like true uplight, even what uplight is, or what pin spots lighting are, or any of the different type of options there truly are in lighting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very true.
Back to my if I have $2,000 to spend. So uplights are so important.
The lights that sit on the ground and project up the wall for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that it defines the space.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which can really help, especially if you have too big of a space and too small of a guest count, or especially if your whole space was used for dinner, but now we want everybody over here. You can really use uplights to literally create the parameters of the space you want people to be in.
I love that. Yeah.
And then next is pin spots. So if you just spend a lot of money on flowers and we bring everybody in and they sit down at their tables and we lower the lights to be romantic, guess what nobody can see? All the flowers you just spent money on.
It's wild.
So you at least have to, at a minimum, have like 6 pin spots to illuminate even just like those 6 really pretty tables that you spent a lot of money on, right? I mean, candles are nice, but that's just more like ambient lighting. It doesn't, pin spot it. So you need to pin spot your bars, a couple pretty flowers, and your cake table. And then the dance floor wash. So my favorite trickery, like witchery as a wedding planner, is I really like, whether you have a DJ or a band, to, again, it goes back to defining a space. So we can have tables around a dance floor, and it's a clear dance floor, even if it's a concrete floor, wood floor, or whatever. It doesn't have to be like some fancy dance floor you brought in. You can just define the space with tables. But then to do a light wash of nice candlelight, when I'm preparing for a wedding as a wedding planner, I will bring the bride's dress to the dance floor, have them shine the light on it just to make sure it's not like too orange, or, white can be so many different colors.
Yeah.
You can put a white dress in front of a light and all of a sudden it looks like Smurf blue. So we get that dance floor light just right so that when the bride and groom come on the dance floor, it's my favorite like goosebump moment. We cut all the rest of the lights in the area, so it's like Disney princess vibes, where it's like all you can see is the middle of the dance floor. And then how amazing do all of us look in like candlelight tone?
Yeah.
So now you're just like flush with candlelight tone, you and your significant other, and you're dancing, and it's just when everybody else is in the dark, and it like sucks the whole focus and attention of the room in the middle. And then when you get done with those special dances, then it's like, cut the lights, cut the dance floor wash, DJ, put your music on. And that's how, I just love controlling the mood of a room that way. That, no offense, but flowers can't do.
Well, let me ask you this, because, I love lighting so much. And really, so you said, for like earlier on, you're doing candlelight kind of color to set that mood. But when you do transition later on to a different color, maybe those uplights change to like a blue or something like that. Are you going like hard blue, like navy blue? Or are you doing a light blue? Like, what's your suggestion to clients usually to work those uplights into their colors?
I'm really good with just kind of following the client's preferences there. I would say that we work with a lot of clients who are very 50 Shades of White.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, it's amber. It's like soft off-white.
Maybe a blush.
Maybe a
champagne
light
is the word.
pink.
Yeah,
Champagne.
Yes.
But I would say with a band, it's a little easier, and then I'm just like, the band has taken over.
Yeah,
But I love that DJs have you guys kind of like, it's like pass the baton. Like when it's time to dance, it's like, and the baton is with you and you. And now, in my opinion, I probably just don't even talk to the clients about it too much. I just trust that the DJ is a professional and going to like control the mood of the room at that point and feel the energy of it. And I think that's probably the best person to do it.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. I could talk about lighting forever because I'm so passionate about it.
I can tell. I appreciate that. Like, I was like, oh, he's asking about the colors.
Yeah.
Well, even Double A, he has the lights that we'll use, the overhead. What is it called again exactly?
These spotlights?
Yeah, the spotlights, and
Okay.
we'll use those to like illuminate the bride and groom when they do their first dance as well.
Yes.
Because it's gonna just even for toast look better,
Okay.
and it makes a night and day difference for
Yeah,
the video.
that's very
And just
true.
to touch on just the story that you were telling earlier.
Yeah.
One, I cannot wait to shoot a wedding with you because that's amazing. I love.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
because you really painted a pretty picture.
Yes.
One, two, I kind of do the same thing, but like not necessarily with. I always try to partner up with the photographer. I'm like, okay, what white balance do you want? Do you want a little warmer? Do you want a little cooler? Just for that moment, because I need to work with a photographer. I usually give them first shot, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
if
say obviously, not all videographers do.
Yeah.
well, because
I'm glad you do.
it's always better because I want them to get their shot and then let me swoop through, you know.
Right.
And but if the shot looks good for them, it's obviously going to look good for me. So if I can share, my lights with them, like, hey, do you want a little brighter? Do you want a little dimmer? What works for you? And it always makes things a lot smoother.
It really does, and it looks great. It looks absolutely great with in terms of like from my perspective, because it's minimum, it's directed on the dance floor, and like you said, you're defining the space. And I never even thought of it like that before.
Yeah,
but
I
really,
love that
you
description.
do define the space with like what you're using at the time. But yeah, that has been a wonderful side segment on lighting.
I'm like ready to talk about video
I
and photographer
know.
relationships now. Like, there's just so much to talk about.
There really is. But yeah, we kind of going back to like the contracts of it all and figuring out, what to be aware of in the contract itself. What items do clients need to be aware of in the contract that could really make or break, or just overall be important?
I know.
I think
Well,
timing can be
yeah,
tricky.
yes.
Especially going back to, I think that there's a new trend due to the demographics changing in Austin of wanting later events. At
Yes.
least that's something I keep kind of rubbing up against lately. Gone are
agree.
the day of events ending at 11.
Oh.
So I think that can be really important to look at. And then I think just like understanding the service charge fees and the tax, which a lot of people are hip to. I get that, but you really got, you need to like not just know that it's there, but like run the numbers.
Yeah,
And again,
exactly.
going back to Wedding Scout, when you run the numbers, our catering numbers include taxes and service charges.
Okay,
and all
yeah,
of that.
that's
Yeah.
great point, because I know when it comes time to tax season, so many
Yeah,
vendor
right?
friends of ours are like, wait, do I include sales tax on mine?
Oh,
Do I
that's
not
tricky.
include sales
I
tax
know.
on mine? I know as musicians we're not supposed to because for whatever reason I looked up the law, but
Yeah.
as other vendors they do have to charge sales tax and stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
That was unexpected to me, honestly.
Well,
hearing
the
about
biggest
that.
one is service charges.
Service charges.
Okay, so
Yeah.
For most weddings, your biggest bill is going to be catering. For most,
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
all, but
yeah.
for most. And then you have, on average, 22 would be the low, 22 to 24%.
Yeah, to 25 in
service
some
charge,
cases. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's
Wow.
It's huge.
On top of your catering food and potentially beverage, depending on the venue.
Okay, wow, that's really good to
Yeah.
know that one right there.
And that's the case whether you're hiring an outside caterer like Contigo, or if you're like at the Line Hotel doing.
Right.
They all
In-house.
have a service
Yeah,
charge.
yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not.
It really just, but then, oh my gosh, I could just go on. Like, because
We've never had
it's
a
not a
client
black
who
and white.
didn't push against it.
Right, exactly. Or
That's
be
hilarious.
like, or
I'm
be,
getting mad for them right now.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
know.
it is a significant, or be like, do I have to tip on top of that? Well,
It's tricky.
yeah, that's kind of, I think that's sensitive, because it's like, well, obviously, yeah, no one has to tip, but that service charge is not necessarily going directly to the people that are servicing your event. So it's like it's split. It's almost like tip share or whatever.
I
So,
see. Okay.
So I
And
just
that even depends on every venue.
Yeah.
So you really do have to look at your contract.
Yeah.
But some of the things that when you're signing a
And they won't
contract that you
include-
like, what do you typically negotiate on? Like, I feel like we'll always get a bride and groom room.
Yeah,
Right?
I would say, well, and just
A
in terms
champagne
of
toast.
champagne toast. Well, now that we've decided we're always going to negotiate cake cutting.
now always negotiate cake cutting.
And I would say obviously this depends on the venue as well, but in terms of setup time. So if, so a venue like The Line, there can be a lot more flexibility with coming in to set up potentially even the night before, depending on what they have booked. And I wouldn't commit them to anything, but if it works for their schedule, there may not be an additional charge, right? Mm-hmm. So, which could certainly help us in a lot of ways. But then, and I say us, I mean, operationally speaking, but anybody,
vendors, gotcha. So you're talking about the access time.
The access time.
Yeah.
But with the standalone venues,
now you're about to go into
it. With the standalone venues, those are typically anywhere between 10, 12, 14-hour holds. And then
14 hours is pretty generous.
Yeah. I was just at Addison Grove, and that was 14 hours. So I was like, nice.
Okay.
That's why that's on the top of my head.
But the museums, Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, Laguna Gloria,
you get
Umlauf,
2 hours to set up.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's really important because I have deterred couples away from those venues, which I absolutely love, because if they are going to have a significant setup or a certain guest count, or just an expectation of the decor, it can't happen unless you have a 3-hour wedding.
Time. Yeah, you have to push back the ceremony time.
Yeah.
Or you have to have the budget where you can really bring in more people.
So you bring in more labor.
Yeah. So it's doable. You just need to double
doable.
up your labor.
Right.
And again, not doable without a experienced, legit wedding planner.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine flipping a space without a planner there of some sort. Oh my gosh.
Oh, but honestly, the venues we're talking about, it's not even just flipping space. It is just doing it, just getting it all done in 2 hours.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Even without flipping.
Yeah. So. But just to harp on the access time, I do think that's really important to evaluate. I mean, when it comes down to it, adding, maybe a couple hours could be $250 to $500. So that actually, in the scheme of things, is not a huge, that's not a huge deal. But in the same respect, if someone's like, oh, great, I have 8 hours, 10 hours. Well, that's still, if you want to, be in your bridal suite and have some, with your hair and makeup schedule and all these things, sometimes that is definitely not enough time, and it sounds like a lot because it's a long day, but it's just not enough time to make things happen. So I would say maybe it's definitely not something that needs to be added at the contract time, but it's something to be evaluated pretty early on.
That's a good point.
So that you understand what your day looks like and the additional fees if you have to add labor to make a shorter load-in happen. So not so much contractually, but I would say that there will be additional fees based on how much time you have available to you at the venue.
Yeah, in my experience, there's not a lot of negotiation with standalone venues.
Right.
I feel like I haven't changed many contracts there. Hotels,
but hotels,
open season.
It's so lovely. It's so nice.
And your greatest leverage is honesty.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Of saying, hey, Line Hotel, I'm comparing you to the Proper and South Congress Hotel. Here's what they're offering. If you can just put your cards out and just be honest and genuine with your comparison, that's your best strategy for really getting the best deal, so to speak.
And
they'll throw what they can at you.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, because I know it's a part of what you're talking about anyways, is that so when certain venues like hotels or even a regular standalone venue might have a required vendor list, what are the issues? Is that negotiable even with most venues or?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've certainly even been in venues that were not necessarily on the list, and I mean with those, and this is actually a very good point, because if someone is considering a vendor that doesn't have the professional things in place, like a certificate of insurance, which is what ends up happening if they're not on a list, is okay, as long as they can provide this documentation, then they're welcome to come in, for your wedding. But it's also a red flag when they're oh, la, 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 and, or whatever. in terms of providing just the right paperwork to show that you're a legitimate business.
I think the biggest area, and you might disagree with this because, I haven't really thought as much about photography and floral and stuff, but I would even say from like wedding scout perspective, because I'm thinking more about budget and how the venue impacts your budget. The vendor list that I'm most interested in is catering and bar, because again, it's just the biggest
I see,
chunk of the pie.
Yeah.
There's,
Agreed.
I feel like there's a lot of good DJs, and if you had a DJ relationship, I can't imagine a venue being like, no, we don't know DJ Nick. Like,
I've had it happen.
Really?
Yes.
You've been turned away?
Well, some venues will do this thing where they sign a contract with a certain DJ company, and they will only allow that DJ company to have events at their space, which is a really shady kind of practice, honestly.
Has that happened often to you?
It's starting to happen more.
Interesting.
Oh, no.
And I think that like people are steering away from it too, because a lot of people have an idea of who they want their DJ to be, and they don't want this like canned DJ that everyone had playing the cha-cha slide Cupid shuffle combo. So that's why like it's sometimes too for some venues, like we'll reach out and we'll say, hey, this client wants to have us. I had one in San Antonio, which was a nightmare situation where they made me jump through hoops. Like they were like, we need you to provide, like, of course, insurance, but they made me have like all these specific details and documents and contracts I signed. And at the end of the day, they were like, well, listen, you don't provide this one thing, which I think was like workers' comp or something, which isn't even applicable to me. And they were like, sorry, you can't come to our hotel. Your client's going to have to get a new DJ. And I was like, the client ended up saying, screw the venue. We're going to a different venue.
Wow.
But it just goes to show that some people, or some venues are really just like very particular about who's in their space. I know.
Are they particular, or are they just like cashing in on an opportunity for like a contract?
I have no idea. I have
like
no
to
idea.
me that just smells more like capitalism.
It does seem a little. There's something going on. I'm not sure what it is. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. See you in a second. Welcome back. We are now talking more about the contracts that we were talking about earlier and what to expect from venue contracts. We had talked about just, to briefly kind of go over it about what, lost my space even, the access time, required vendors, but then now there's two more major topics. Is right to photos, and then, of course, the payment schedule and credit card fees. Can you talk about the first one to start off with the rights to photos?
Absolutely. And I think it's a really important topic because when you get engaged, you're in the clouds. Like there's so many things to think about. And when you sign a contract for a venue, this is the first really big contract that you're going to sign. And it's going to dictate pretty much your budget moving forward for the rest of your wedding. And so I think it's important to like kind of come out of the clouds and focus on these tiny little details. And one of the things that have been coming up more recently, I think just because of the prevalence of social media and maybe people even just being a little bit more either private or wanting to sort of curate their own image. In a lot of the contracts you sign in wedding world, there will be a rights to photo clause because, if you're a venue and you've got this big, beautiful wedding, you want to show it off. If you're a wedding planner or a designer and you've put your heart and soul into this, you want to show it off.
And you got a beautiful couple. You want to show.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when the couple's really pretty. Well, actually, even more now, it's like same-sex couples or, if there's like a mixed race couple, you're like, I need you in my portfolio,
So true.
Sign your rights away to me.
Yeah.
But, people are becoming more sensitive to that, which I totally respect. But I think that's something worth thinking about ahead of time before you just start signing the dotted line. What do you think?
Yeah.
Have you run into this at all?
I really haven't. I don't know for any particular reason, but I mean, it hasn't been something that's come up enough to. I've had clients, like potential clients, I should say, as part of the our interview process or whatever, getting to know them, have asked if we're going to they have said that they're private and they don't want their wedding shared on Instagram, because that no, other than that, not too much. No,
I think that I've had one couple this year alone. I have it as a clause in my contract that any photos we take ourselves, we can share on social media.
Yeah.
And I've only had one a couple, and it was when the father of the bride or whoever was taking care of the payment, and he said, no, take out line 15. Like, we're not doing that at all. Like, we're not sharing our photos anywhere. But to the couple, it really didn't matter. It seemed like it was more of an issue that the parents were like, yeah, we don't want to share, you know, the guests and see who was, like, letting people see who's there.
I feel like parents have to have a little bit of like shock or whatever, you know, just it's a shift in
culture.
Yeah, exactly. And not that they're not aware of the power of social media, but they are probably not aware of how powerful, you know, social media is to booking business for weddings.
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah.
But then the reverse of that,
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with it in my own life. My husband and I took really beautiful engagement photos on Town Lake. And my husband's not on Instagram, or he has a LinkedIn profile. Like, that's all you can find out about Matthew Robert Newey.
Put him out there.
Except for if you Google him, which, you know, he interviews for jobs just like everybody else. You know, if you Google my husband, the only photo you can find other than his one headshot on LinkedIn is our engagement photos where I'm like straddling him and biting his ear. I am not kidding.
That is great.
And so we had to contact our
find that.
photographer and be like, hey, and you know, and they could take it,
'Cause they
took
put it in
it off their
SEO, huh?
site,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
but like it's still
Yeah.
out there, even though the photographer took it off. And it's a beautiful, sweet photo of us at that stage in life. But for him, he's like, there's 2 photos of me on the internet. Can we do something about this?
That's hilarious. Like those awkward family photos.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say this is actually more awkward if you're interviewing for a job.
Yeah, so photographers, be careful with your SEO. That's
Yeah.
gonna come back to bite you somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I have actually experienced that a bit more, but then also just like the payment structure, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
especially if you're with a hotel, you're going to have a really big bill with them because
Yeah.
they're covering so much. And so hotels are always really good about breaking it out into like maybe 4 different payments. But that's negotiable. I mean,
Yeah.
you can talk about different payment schedules. I think that it's, you know, if you're not working with a hotel, also, it's always good to ask about credit card fees.
Yes.
There are people
Yes.
who will negotiate still on, you know, checks versus cash versus Venmo versus whatever. When we do full service clients for 36th Street in our budget calculator and also with our like vendor payment schedule, we are very specific and clear about who accepts credit card, who doesn't, what type of, you know, discounts and offerings. So I would ask those questions when I sign. And this is more for hotels than like a standalone venue, but again, just like working through that cost estimate with them. It's not like they're hiding fees for like a gotcha.
Right.
You just have to ask the right questions. They're not going to offer
Learning the rules of the
up-
game, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they're not just going to offer up this information.
Yeah.
So ask about like tableside wine service. I have a client right now where, unbeknownst to me, for all of the different like buffets and stations, it's really important for her to have like a server at each station.
Yeah.
For her,
Yes.
she just wants it to like be elevated to that next level. Well, that's like $250 per station,
Right.
You know, and it's not like the hotel was saying, gotcha. It's
Yeah.
just that's the cost it takes for them to allocate that resource from one area to the hotel to the other.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just is what it is. So try to really think through the flow of the event, where you want the ceremony to happen, where you want the cocktail hour to happen, you know, how all of that's going to look. Ask all of your questions. And you can always ask too, you know, am I in a rush? Honestly, right now, I feel like across the board in Austin, 2024, there's been a little dip, right? I mean,
Oh
would
yes,
you-
I have seen it myself. I'm like, wow, we need to book
Yeah.
a few more weddings this year.
Yeah, and when we talk to all different vendors everywhere in the Austin area, it's pretty much all the same. We're getting inquiries now for 2025, and it's like, what happened to 2024?
I thought it was just me, so I'm glad we're talking about it.
No, it's pretty much everybody. So, you know, you have a little bit more leverage there. Like ask, like, hey, you know, what kind of a timeline am I on here? Can we spend a couple of weeks talking about this
Yes.
so I can really flesh this out? And, you know, it's tricky for standalone venues because to an extent, and I get it, they just want you to like sign on the dotted line, give them their $7,000, and they're moving on to the next person. That's the beauty of being a standalone venue and not having catering and lighting and all of this stuff. But you either need to hire a wedding planner to figure that all out, pepper your event salesperson with all the questions, and then hopefully also go to Wedding Scout and like see, you know, a lot of the answers to those questions to really flesh out that budget before you sign.
That's a great point right there. And I know that we shout out to Paige Vaughn real quick. She's very passionate about talking about payment and credit card and using a great system. I know she said on one thread on like Facebook about the best the best system to use to collect that payment from clients. But do y'all have any like do's or don'ts for vendors that you might recommend of like what to use for collecting that payment, or maybe offering like what is it called, direct I'm blanking, from the bank, direct deposit into account or something like that? Is there anything like that y'all can give advice for?
That'd be more your forte than mine.
I mean, fortunately, I feel like as small business owners, you know, so keeping the individual vendors separate from, you know, maybe a big box venue is that it is an easier conversation that, you know, we have a 3 to 5% credit card fee when you're choosing to make that. It doesn't matter what you know, QuickBooks, HoneyBooks, obviously,
even,
you know, there's something
business.
Venmo.
Everything's
business is
doing
up and
that
running.
percentage now.
Yeah. So, so with that fee, I mean, there's always options to pay, you know, well, by check. I think maybe Zelle is an option.
ACH, or is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, because the credit card fee is put on us, you know, they don't have to, that's not how they have to pay. But it's just not something that we should have to absorb as a small business. And not that that's not necessarily how I phrase it.
I actually disagree with you. Maybe this could be fun.
Yeah. No, well, or you build it in, that's fine if you build it into your package in some way. But when you're taking 3 to 5% of a package price, that you're like the value up to you, when you're like, I'm the value of X amount for your wedding package, and then you take 3 to 5% out of that, unless you build it into that, I don't think, you know, and that's, and maybe that's what you're thinking.
And some vendors are very passionate about getting the full payment when they're not like, I'm not letting any credit card company take my cut of what I deserve. And so I understand that. Sorry, go on.
Well, and I get it too, because it's a convenience fee. A lot of people also are, you know, building that credit for their honeymoon. You know, they're trying to get points. So I get wanting to use a credit card and the benefits there, and I'm not against it by any means. I just, in terms of not only for myself collecting payment, but also just being an advocate for my peers, you know, to me, it's an easy conversation to be like, if you expect to pay by credit card, there is going to be that fee because it's a small business. And to me, I feel like it's.
What about you, Ren?
I know I'm the minority here. I totally get it. Well, I mean, especially knowing, I mean, I didn't know. I love Paige Vaughn. I didn't know her.
She's. We got to get her on this podcast to talk about it, because I know she had like the answer.
An amazing
she
personality.
She really is. Paige Vaughn, the Austin icon.
Yeah, she's incredible. Oh my gosh, love her. You know, it's interesting. So I would say, first off, with Wedding Scout, everything from the end user, the couples, is free unless you hire us for one-on-one scouting purposes.
That's a great thing to say. Yeah.
But when you go to the website, it's free. You don't have to spend money unless you want to. However, it's a subscription service. So for us to go into a venue and do video and all of that, I mean, that's how we make our money, right? In my upbringing, I guess, my entrepreneurial view is that you work really hard to capture the minds and the hearts and the confidence of that client. Sure. And once you have it, my personal perspective is you make it as easy as possible to seal the deal.
Sure.
So I hate the hurdles. I hate it when vendors send, here's 4 different ways to pay. And if you're going to pay this way, here's a fee. I'm like, Jesus, just get the client to pay you. Like, isn't that the name of the game? Like, why are we like fighting over 3%?
I mean, I
get that. I'm not being, I mean, not that 3% is not important. To me, I go, if I'm going to buy a bottle of wine at Trader Joe's versus a bottle of wine at the gas station down the street, I'm going to pay a convenience fee. If I'm going to get a client today and lock them in versus spending an extra 2 days to send like ACH transfer information, like, you know what I mean? Like, I live in a life where I feel like I pay convenience fees every minute that I breathe,
Yes. No, I totally agree with that. And it does start to add up.
I really don't want this to be like the Instagram clip.
This will be the Instagram clip. What up, Instagram?
I'm like, I think we're just gonna have to agree to disagree because I'm not gonna back down. So
Well, that is the best way to figure out if you want to do your payment options. How important is
Give me your
3% to
check.
you?
Sponsored by Honey Fund.
I know. Oh my gosh, Honeybook. Oh my gosh. No, I don't even. I mean, I could go on a totally different tangent on the systems though, because I actually, to your point, well, this is probably
They all have to make money.
but they all have to make money. But I actually find that some of those are actually not user friendly. So there's something I hear what you're saying.
I QuickBooks all the time. I've never sent a bill to anybody other than QuickBooks, no credit card fee. Here you go.
Sure.
I'm going to make it as easy as possible for you to give me money.
Yeah.
That is my entrepreneurial core belief.
And I agree with that, which is why I'm saying that's very true, that to find a system that works well for making that exchange, because there are definitely some that are out there that I don't feel like are as user friendly. So
I mean,
it's very true. I used to have a system where it was like it actually got hacked, and they had to pretty much completely take the system back to how it was a year before.
Yeah.
And turns out the percentage they were charging me was closer to double, so it was 6%,
Wow.
8%
Yeah.
per transaction, and everyone ended up leaving this one, and so I know that there is for the vendors at least, people looking for what is the best method to use instead of being tricked by these software groups that see the wedding industry as, okay, we can take advantage of them making money.
Yeah.
Totally different conversation from the venues. But yeah, hopefully, like I said, we'll talk to Paige Vaughn and figure out what she's found as her solution. Because I remember her being passionate about it online.
You can bring me in as a passionate side guest. I'll
Sounds
just
good.
pop
would
through
you
the
be
side
agreeing
door.
or disagreeing with her?
I have no idea. We'll see what she has to say.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Well, because I think the other thing too, one of the things that's nice about, running a small business and stuff like that. I mean, there is a lot of room for error, so there's only room to learn, right?
Love it.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm always open to learning better ways to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really actually disagree with what you're saying. I just feel, for me, and maybe it is that I'm not inflating the cost, to take care of that. But I will always advocate for my vendors that do choose to do that. I will never go back to them and say, oh, why are you adding that? Because I want them to
I think it's just improving the system as much as you can.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah,
exactly.
I really love it. And then just knowing what things to expect, and like you're saying, you're learning the rules of the game, so you're understanding what, it's not a surprise where you're just oh, we got you here.
Yes.
It's more or less hey, that's part of what they have to do as a part of their services, and sales tax, whatever convenience fee, service fee might be. It's fine. I'm kind of on the same page where I'm like, okay, I understand it's a part of what you'll have to do, and we're paying for the base service, but then we also have other fees that come into play that people really don't expect. We were talking before the podcast began about power drops, which I honestly didn't even know they cost money. I thought it was just from bringing a cable out. And then also the cake cutting fee. We talked about that in the previous Ashley Nicole episode, but those are some big fees. The cake cutting especially.
Yeah, and I think that it's tricky because a lot of, I would say most clients or most people getting married are figuring out band versus DJ. I'm sure you're very well versed in this, back and forth conversation. Obviously, bands are typically more expensive, not always. But you also need to take into consideration things like the power drop and the stage, right?
And the power drop being, I honestly didn't even know, but it's just a box that they take out, and it runs power specifically for the band so that there's no power trips or any issues with the power. But it's just a small little box they put behind the stage usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in a hotel it makes a lot of sense, or really anywhere to put it right behind the band. But on standalone venues, it often can determine, or it can be determined if it's even necessary based on the lighting that you have going on.
Yes.
The catering pool, depending on literally what your caterers are cooking on site, you really need to, with more complicated weddings, figure out who's drawing power. We've done the fancy flush toilets, anybody who can draw power, you need to have that schematic figured out. And I would say oftentimes for a venue that's like outside of the city, that's not like a venue factory, you're going to need to bring in a generator.
Yeah.
But at hotels, you definitely need to bring in a power drop for a band. And typically it's $400 to $600.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Crazy. Just to make sure that everything runs smoothly. But once again,
Right.
you got to have it for some of these groups that I'm sure bands bring in tons of equipment and speakers
Yeah.
and lights that draw more power than a DJ normally does.
Yeah, and sometimes you can negotiate the stage, and you know if you're
Yes.
especially
yeah.
if you're at a hotel.
Yes.
And then some venues even have stages as well, just like in their storage.
Right.
But you can negotiate that in advance to
Yeah.
go ahead and get that included. If you're in a position to negotiate, which is kind of what it all comes down to, like negotiating leverage, I think is
Yeah.
really important to consider.
Which is, I mean, to your point of kind of the hole in bookings, you know, that's going to be the area that there's now room for negotiation where there wasn't for 2022 and part of what year is it?
Yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean?
when we were like,
there wasn't
busting
room
out of
for
the
negotiation
seams,
last
yeah.
year. So a lot of people are used to not negotiating and taking what they can get. I think that, you know, now, because everything cycles. Nothing is, especially in this industry. I mean, we're going to say in 5 years from now, remember when this happened. And then 5 years from then, it's going to be like, oh, this is happening again. You know, so everything cycles. And I might not be accurate on my 5 year, but like I said before, I love my fives.
I think you are.
I love it. Call back.
So
But
other
basically,
fees to
yeah,
think
I
about,
was gonna
though.
say like I think there will, like, moving into, well, from now and, you know, like moving forward, there is more, we can talk about negotiation. That wasn't even a conversation for
Post-pandemic.
a while. Yeah.
Interesting.
There was just such a huge surge of weddings.
Yes,
you
there was
know,
a surge, yeah.
That when negotiating with a venue, it was like, good luck, you know,
Yeah.
there's 5 people behind you. But now I feel like it's simmered down. Not only the demand, but also the supply.
Yeah.
I mean, holy moly.
Great point. Yes. How many new venues have you? I mean, it's crazy
Nonstop.
because when
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website, the venues itself, I've been to every one of those venues, but there was a few on there that I was like, what? That's a venue? Like, I've never heard of this before. Sure enough, it's just opening. And there was like
Sure.
5 examples of that alone on the website. So, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
really the supply, yes, increasing.
The supply has really increased.
Yeah.
And I feel like also the sort of stranglehold on downtown development has really expanded, you know,
Yes.
in the last couple of years. And then there's even like weird things like Brazos Hall's coming back now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a lot more. Outside of Austin grew really fast, and now inside of Austin is growing again. So I just feel like overall there's just such a huge supply, and there was a real tidal wave of demand, but that has simmered down
Yeah.
a little bit right
I would
now.
agree. I would
And
agree.
everybody has different theories for why that's happening.
Yeah.
But either way, just know that moving forward right now, you have a lot of negotiation leverage power
Yes.
when negotiating with venues. So ask for everything.
Yes, you should not be taking things at face value right now. Is that
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
that-
yeah,
that's-
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Saying
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Totally.
Like there's no way. Even if you get like 5 free parking passes or something, like,
Take it.
You have to take it. You take it and you
Waive
run.
that cake cutting fee, damn it.
Oh my gosh, that's like my goal. Like moving forward.
Well, speaking of cake cutting fee is one of the hidden
Oh,
fees,
no, I'm
and
gonna be-
and I had no idea that it
Sure.
was that much. We were talking about fives earlier in terms of how much each cake slice costs.
5s
but
and S's.
Fives and
that's
S's,
our-
yes. It's all
the
the-
5. Wait, you said the 6 P's.
On the 6 P's.
The 5
but-
S's.
Yeah, the 5
and
S's, the
6
6 P's. Just generally the 5s.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly.
But so then cake cutting really just jumps out of nowhere, and it is expensive. And tell me about how y'all feel about cake cutting and the
I'm
cake
going to
cutting
take
fee.
like a pro-capitalism view. I know it.
Go for it.
Now I'm never going to fight again, and then it's going to be an Instagram
Oh,
clip.
no, I'm not going to fight. I'll tell you what I like. I mean, this is personal, but also I guess I tend to also attract couples that come to me and are not always wanting a traditional cake these days.
Yeah.
So meaning like they're like, we want just little dessert bites, you know, or something like
Yeah.
that, which I think is, I don't know, that's obviously an easy way to avoid that. But also, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of symbolism in weddings, you know, a lot of tradition. And that's what this industry can harp on in terms of cost. So it's like, what is the value of that cake to you? You know, so for us, when we break down the servings, it's right now it's about $6.50 to $7.50, maybe $8 actually, a serving of cake.
For an outdoor cake, like to get a
get
third-party vendor.
Yes.
That's not including the
Yes.
cake cost itself. That's
That is the
outside.
cost of the
cost
cake.
of the
This is the
cake.
cost
Oh,
of
okay,
the
To
cake.
hire
It's
Simon
six-
Lee Bakery. I'll
Yeah.
plug them because I love
I love
Yeah.
Simon Lee. Yep.
Oh yeah. So $6.50 to $8 a serving. So that's not including the cake cutting. So that's just for
The cake.
your piece of cake.
Yeah.
You know, times. I mean, yeah. So times
your guests
a
know.
minimum of 100 people. Sometimes people want extra cake. Sometimes people are willing to have less servings because maybe or fewer servings, maybe because there is another element. You know, but.
I could
But
really
yeah.
talk for 30 minutes
I
about
know.
cakes, honestly.
That's
I
so
could
many.
too.
I know.
I really
have so
could
many
too.
But yeah,
opinions.
there's just so many.
But at the end of the
options.
day, if you're going to a third-party vendor, you're going to be spending $800 plus. on a
Exactly,
cake.
a minimum of 800.
Meanwhile, you have a wedding at a hotel, and they are charging
$5 to $8. $5 to $8
just to serve it.
cut it. And okay,
To
Cut
cut
it
it.
and
To
serve
cut
it.
it.
to cut.
And
Oh
to
no,
clean the plates
I
after.
am not. Oh no, I'm not going. Yes. So no, exactly. The labor is there, and they should be compensated. But that is a hard. That's a hard
pill to swallow.
pill to swallow.
It is. Yeah.
But conversely, you could not do a cake on the outside and theoretically use them. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like, I
right.
think it's more of a deterrent.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a fee to push you to, use their services, use their pastry chef.
Oh, I see what
Yeah.
you mean. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that could be part of it because
It's a combination.
Well, it's a combination. It's so many things. Yeah. Exactly.
But
well,
it
yeah.
is something that gets especially mothers of the bride all in a tizzy.
I know. I'm really aging. I'm like that old grandma that's like, like this.
No,
me.
I know.
But
It's so funny because, I actually personally don't care, but it is always an issue.
Yeah.
For and on this topic of venues, it's something that you should ask about and just not be surprised about,
Yeah.
honestly. But if you're a venue, well, it's not standalone venues that are doing this fee.
No.
And
no,
actually,
not
the
at all.
outside
Actually,
caterers
outside caterers don't
really charge
yes.
for this.
Yeah.
Because when they're going out to Dripping Springs and they're taking their whole staff out there, for the most part, their whole staff's kind of there. Because
Yeah.
you need that many people to
Yeah.
clean up.
But they're
at
still
the
going to
night,
charge you most of the times. The outside caterers, like for standalone venues.
but not $8 a slice.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's much
the
more-
fee
it's much
is higher at
much more
hotels,
nominal.
which is
Yeah.
why I'm saying it's not just to cover their cost. It's to push you to spend more on your food and beverage.
I see what
you
mean.
Than the hotel.
And you know what's, because you brought up an interesting point too about like it's the tradition. It's that like
Yeah.
they know they're going to be able to do that because the traditional piece
Mm-hmm.
of the cake cutting itself is, and it's just a part of the culture of weddings
Yeah.
that happen in the Western world. But looking at it in the big picture of things, and you take away kind of that traditional stuff, it's like, okay, what is it there for? Like, what are we truly enjoying
Mm-hmm.
this cake for? I know 100% we're going to talk about traditions and respect to like modern things that happens at weddings. We're going to do a whole podcast episode
That's
about
nice.
that.
That's great.
We'll do a deep dive into why the cake's there, why
Yeah.
the dress is
I love
white,
that.
so I'm really, that's one of my
I
favorite.
have opinions.
Well, I love listening. Shout out to the Bouquet Toss podcast. They do a deep
Oh,
dive
fun.
in depth kind of into each of these things.
Okay.
But it's so important to think about like, okay, why are we doing this? Like, are we just
Yeah.
kind of going through the motions that
Yeah.
everyone else did for no reasons?
Sure.
The Macarena,
Yeah.
and stuff. But like, really, the key to this is understanding like, why do you want to do this for yourself? You
Yeah.
know, are you into the tradition? Or are you just into like the modern, like you make it yourself, you make it your own wedding?
Yeah.
I thought of another P.
Oh, ooh. Proper
Okay,
planning prevents piss
but
poor performance
yes.
and?
Well, okay, prevents piss poor performance and like adds priority because I am very.
How about proper planning and prioritization
Yes.
prevents piss poor? Wait, how do we still get down 6? We'll
Oh.
figure this out later.
Yeah,
Proper
6
planning
glasses of wine
and
mean
prioritization.
because that is when I start to establish my relationship with any couple. The way that and I'm sorry if I'm sounding like so obvious, but once I know their priorities, like in the first planning meeting, that really sets the tone because then I can
True.
always bring it back to that. And also what they don't like, or but priority. So
and you need those before you pick the venue.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right out the
So
gate.
that is like, in order of traditions, those traditions might not be your priority. Like that does not
Exactly.
And so you really have to evaluate, because if you can get 10, 20 more minutes on the dance floor because you're not, building a tight agenda to cut the cake or something like that, then that might make you a lot happier. So,
That's such a great point. That really is such a great point, because it is about like what is your priority, and that's what I ask people in every initial call. I'm like, okay, well, what is the priority here? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Like, or are we focused more on ourselves? Like, and everyone has a different answer, and it's those priorities for sure.
Yeah.
Of coming down to it. And I know people try to like save on certain things and trying to like bring their own thing. And I've had people bring their own cake in, and people bring their own food, and people bring their own alcohol in, and it seems to them and
yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
which ones are okay, which ones are, and why?
Not the cake. Not if you're doing multi-tiers. I've had 2 cakes, the Leaning Tower of Pisa into flatness.
Oh.
Yeah, don't.
Okay, so cake?
Yeah.
Cake is,
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like a legit, friend, but not, not
Nothing
just
homemade.
like watches the baking show
Yeah.
and thinks they can make a 3-tiered cake. Definitely don't do that.
Well, and also like how we were talking about sound, like, I mean, this is maybe in my early wedding days, but this still happens. I know. I mean, if someone wants to just have like, their Spotify playlist and play some, you can go to Rock and Roll Rentals and rent a speaker, but that is not, it's not our responsibility as planners to set that up and make that a successful
Absolutely not.
source of entertainment.
Absolutely not.
You're
I'm going to
correct.
record this and send it to a bride right now.
Oh.
I will F up your whole thing, not intentionally.
It's
but that is,
hard.
it's a lot of pressure for something that we're not experts in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's not
so-
just plug and play. There's settings. And if someone that had the speaker beforehand just pushed a bunch of different buttons,
Sure.
and it could be completely
Yes,
wrong.
I
And
can't imagine.
But also, y'all, with Spotify, like the songs go from loud, like you.
Oh,
like,
Thank you
yes.
for saying that. Yes,
Yeah, that's
yes.
what I'm
Older
like,
songs and stuff can be
yeah.
very
Yeah.
quiet. It's not all equally balanced.
Oh my gosh.
YouTube's the worst.
Yes.
Yeah, YouTube's terrible.
And certain songs have, I learned this, certain songs have, like different introductions that, like sometimes you need to cue a song at a certain point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm falling in
know?
love right now. I'm like, thank you for saying everything I always have
But
to.
it's like, well, it's because it's like all the things that, I mean, believe me, I have certainly been the coordinator that has done
had
these
to do
things.
that. Yeah, that's really crazy.
But then it's like, it's never again type thing because
Never again.
because like I can't bring the quality to your event that a professional could in that category.
And even if if it wasn't you, it's going to go to someone's responsibility throughout the evening to be
Exactly.
that DJ and
Yeah.
be hitting those buttons, and then your guest is becoming your worker.
Yeah. Yes.
Not yet.
Well, that's a
Pretty good
whole
one.
other episode too.
It really is.
Like people that are just like my cousin will do that. I mean, even if you
gosh,
have,
no.
but even if you have a coordinator, because that's a whole other episode.
And we will probably talk about that. We'll have a DJ episode coming up soon. But
Go with the other ones were the alcohol.
The alcohol, yes. I was
Yeah,
going to say,
yeah,
you
yes.
said alcohol was the one.
Yeah, I would say. Well, okay. Also, here's my, I would say, pushback to that. Unless
Okay.
you have somebody that's just giving you free alcohol,
Right.
and not just a couple bottles here and there. I mean, when you're at a wedding, like you need cases of something. You can't put a Tito's bottle out there, but you only have 4 bottles of Tito. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna do Tito's, you need like a couple cases of Tito's, right?
Yeah.
So unless you have, people just fully sponsoring your alcohol, I'm not intentionally giving a plug to anybody, but just as a wedding planner, I've always used Specs.
Love 'em.
I've heard this as well. Yeah.
They deliver for $40. And
Oh yeah, their delivery fee is so low.
for $40,
Yeah.
you just call them, or I email my guy. I email the guy what I want. They do an order. The client
Wow.
pays. You get back to the percentages.
are-
You get at Specs. You get 5% off if you pay by debit card or check.
But the way that I explain it to my clients, and no one ever can test this.
And you can return the alcohol.
Yes, you can return the alcohol. There's a small restocking fee. But they are consultants to me on how much you should order for X amount of people. And
type. You can
and
say,
type,
I want
yeah.
a red blend, don't care.
Yeah.
Crowd
Yes.
pleaser, about $16.
Yes.
And they'll like plug in what that should be.
Exactly. And when I see a specs order, it's peace of mind for me.
Yeah.
Because versus
I've done weddings for 12 years and they've
Yeah.
never delivered wrong.
Yeah.
I've never had a specs order.
I've
delivered
had a
incorrectly.
family crash their car full of alcohol and deliver wrong. So
Yes,
it's like they went through all
exactly.
that and they could have paid $40.
I know.
$40 to have it delivered.
It's so
And
sad.
then you can get all your money back for any unopened bottles for just
What?
Yeah, restocking.
Okay.
It's a, what, 10%
10%
restocking?
This was not a
Yeah.
specs plug, but now it is officially.
Well,
Specs sponsor us.
100%.
Specs sponsor us with more wine.
Yes, send us
Dear
our way.
specs, we don't need money, we just need wine.
It's such a good plug.
A red
that
blend
Ren-
would be nice.
Yeah.
A red blend.
For those that like to drink
and
a
the
lot.
$28.
She knows what she likes.
Yeah.
It's such a good plug that Ren even has like her guy. She's like, my guy.
Mr. Spec. Mr. Spec.
Mr. Spec.
Mr. Spec. But yeah, I mean, so unless you have a really good deal, there's no better.
There's no
deal.
reason almost.
There's no
yeah.
reason.
And is Specs
Yeah.
just Austin or are they national chain?
I've
or-
definitely
Texas-based?
seen them in San Antonio,
Yeah,
Houston.
Texas-based.
Okay.
So
Shout out to San Antonio as well. But that's really interesting because it seems like it works out.
Go Spurs, go.
That's where I'm from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So alcohol, it seems like there's a bunch of pros to having not doing BYOB, but is there a circumstance when it would be a pro to do it more than bringing it in?
I honestly think people put way too much emphasis on the savings of BYOB.
Yeah.
And that's, again, like back to Scout. If you compare venues, there are venues that allow you to bring it in. There are venues that don't. Typically, the ones that don't, you're going to spend more on alcohol, yeah, duh. But you're also at a venue that's providing everything else. They're providing
Yeah.
the mixers, the ice,
Yes.
the bartenders, the linens, the chairs, you know. So if you go to Wedding Scout and pick, 3 or 4 of your favorite venues, you can click on 150 guests and just see the end number. And then go to the next venue, click on 150 guests, see the end number. So I just think I think a lot of couples get too buried in the semantics of the details. And again, it goes back to what they know.
Yeah.
Young couples know dresses, makeup, jewelry, alcohol,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so they're just kind of like circling and getting way too caught up in these details because it's what's comfortable for them. But when it comes to a wedding and spending all of this money, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to talk about finances. You have to get spreadsheet savvy.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the big picture. Before you sign your biggest contract, being your venue, you need to see your whole budget.
Yeah.
Period. So that's what I'm hoping that Wedding Scout will do, is just kind of educate and empower couples to make better decisions.
Yeah, and that's the half of the battle really, is just being educated and knowing what you don't know for so many of these different circumstances that come up. And the circumstances that come up can be plentiful. That's why, once again, get yourself a coordinator. Don't try to do it yourself. But really, the biggest unexpected thing that happens, and it's not happening right now in the summertime, I'll tell you that, is a rain plan and how those work out. People really just aren't prepared for the circumstance that is their wedding day not being picture perfect weather.
Yeah. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I would say when you're looking at venues, really give some thought to your own sort of core personality and the extent to which you are risk averse versus just like risk comfortable. And if you don't know, maybe ask your future spouse. I'm sure that they have an opinion.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that an outdoor venue without a seamless rain plan, like most venues have some version of a flip or whatever, but even then, like that's a little bit of anxiety causing, emotion on your wedding day. So I'm talking about venues that don't have the perfect rain plan flip. You just need to know that you're going to be cool under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot. It's a lot. We could both spend 30 minutes here talking about
And crying.
Yes.
yeah, exactly. We could just
Therapy.
cry together, sharing all the stories that we have. So I think it's worth spending time on tents because I don't think people talk enough about it, right?
Sure.
There are some venues that are so perfect for tents, but I'm going to talk a little bit more maybe about just like the tent logistics. So right now in Austin, no matter which tent purveyor you contact, we tend to use Premier and Marquee and Peerless.
Yeah, they all do great
almost
jobs.
exclusively.
Yeah.
They all have a little bit different offerings. For the most part, they're all equal. So, and for the most part, they all do basically where, based on the, I'm trying to decide how like in the weeds I want to get, because it is complicated. But basically, going into your wedding, you would do a 50% deposit. That is just to put your name on their calendar. Because on your wedding day, let's just say it's raining that week and everybody wants a tent. Odds are they actually have a tent in their warehouse.
Sure.
It's just they don't have the staff and the people and the time
Wow.
to put up all these tents everywhere.
Right.
So the money you're putting down, that like insurance plan, that's just to get you on the calendar. You're basically reserving bodies, you know, not a physical tent.
That's such a good point. As a videographer, when I'm talking to couples, I'm like, hey, I need like, you know, when they're waiting till the last second, like the last second isn't so
Too
much
late.
to like, you know, it's so I can put my team together. Because you
Yeah.
have 4 or 5 people that I need to make sure that you're open to, so everybody can get together on this day. But if you wait until the last second to like, a week before, I'm like, I can only offer you my single package because I can only do it
Yeah,
versus
right.
having my second shooter and my
But
third shooter.
but speaking towards that, like it's listed in the contract for the tent itself. Like this is just to put you on our calendar. It's not like a gotcha once again of like, oh,
Yeah.
you put this money down, but you didn't see the line where we might not have a tent.
The only little, no, not that, no.
Yeah.
The only little teeny gotcha part that frustrates me is that when you put your deposit down, that insurance on a tent, which could be like $5,000, is like not
Yeah.
a small amount of money. They say that you can get your money back 14 or 12 or 10,
14
whatever
to, like,
business
21 days.
But it's like business days,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
In advance. Well, you don't really know the weather of your weekend until 10 actual days
Yeah.
before. The 10-day forecast is
Or
the
really
first
3 days.
decent, well, but the 10-day forecast is the first decent
Yeah.
glimpse.
Yeah.
Before that, shooting blanks. Like, or, that was a bad analogy. Shooting whatever. What are you
yeah.
shooting?
Shooting.
Shooting in a fish in a barrel.
I have no idea.
That's going to be the
actually.
Instagram clip. I'm joking.
I think,
And I'm like,
I think it was shot in the dark.
Shot in the dark.
Oh yes.
That's the one.
Shot in the
Wish I'd known
dark.
that. Taylor Swift. Dang it.
Oh.
She'll never forgive you.
Moving on.
Yeah.
So basically, I always tell people when you put down the deposit, just like let it go. You know, don't harp on, you know, trying to get that money back.
Right.
And over analyzing the weather schedule. You're not going to know anything
Yeah.
until at least the 10-day out mark. So that's just an insurance policy. Let it go. Then after that is when you get like 48 hours out, where that, you know, that can be really tricky. I will say, I know for us, at least with 36th Street and I bet et cetera too, we do have clauses in our contract that require a rain plan. So, and it can even get as specific as if it's a 30% chance of rain, we have the power to make you do it, right? Which is complicated because, and the reason of that too is a little bit of just like our insurance, because if it's going to rain and destroy tens of thousands of dollars of photo, video, DJ, band equipment, you know, theoretically we could be liable in that situation. So it's extra tricky in Austin, Texas, being somewhat off the Gulf of Mexico, because the rain is just so spotty.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just going to rain for 6 hours. So it's always a little bit of a guessing game. We all have horror stories. I will say in an effort to like give more detail and nuance to a conversation that maybe clients and even maybe some wedding planners don't realize. One of my strategies with a larger wedding where maybe we're going to have a lot of tents because it's all outdoors would actually be to, let's say we need a 40 by 30 and a 10 by 11 and a 14, whatever, you know, we're like piecemealing all
I know
of our...
what venue you're talking about.
I think I do too.
Anywho, did the 40 by 30 give it away?
The 10 by.
But there's other,
Yeah, the 10
but there's
one, yeah,
other,
yeah,
but there's other venues too. But an interesting strategy would be to, I say interesting, the strategy I take is to go ahead and secure that rain plan with like maybe the biggest tent so that you like have that locked and loaded on their calendar.
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily putting 50% down for that tent, that tent, that tent, and that tent. Because by the way, again, in their warehouse, unless it's like a festival weekend, they're gonna have 10 by 20s and 12 by 14s and whatever. It's not like an inventory issue, it's a being on the calendar issue. So I think there's a great benefit to clients just putting the 50% down on like kind of that bigger tent. I mean, it's always a gamble. It's never hurt me, knock on wood. But and then closer to the date, being like, just kidding. We need this, and this add on. And they're not gonna say no. Like they want their money. You know?
So you have the quote, like your clients know the cost, but they're just not committing to it until
they know the potential worst case scenario. But instead of putting a 50% deposit on the worst case scenario, we're putting a 50% deposit on half of that.
Yeah.
Knowing that if it's the worst case scenario.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Interesting strategy.
Yeah.
I liked it.
So far, it hasn't hurt me. Pretty sure I'll get some angry emails after this from like Women Premier.
We'll see you in the comments. Okay? But kind of speaking towards, outside of just the venue itself, one of the final things we're going to talk about here is rehearsal dinner spaces and conversely after party spaces. Now, tell me about rehearsal dinner spaces because I have no idea. As a DJ, I've never seen one even happen. So tell me what y'all's take on that is for the venue spaces around town.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing with rehearsals and after parties, like we talked about a little bit, they're becoming another large element of the weekend. So they're becoming another chance, like, and maybe it's not a rehearsal dinner, maybe it's a welcome party, like, and you have a more intimate rehearsal dinner, and then you open up, you open up a large, either another part of the venue or make your way to another, larger downtown bar or something like that, and have a welcome party.
Yeah.
And so really, because of the destination type atmosphere that the city has become, that has become important, and to find like a full weekend of events and options. So I think that we have a lot of great rehearsal options because since people do want to invite more than that traditional, like just the wedding party, and you need a larger venue to accommodate maybe 75, 100 people, where that wasn't necessarily the rehearsal dinner, count before. I think we have a lot of great intimate venues around here.
Yeah, I agree. We just wrapped filming on a really cool space I'm excited about. Have you guys been to the Roosevelt Room or the Eleanor downtown?
The Roosevelt Room, I think I have.
It's so
I've heard of the Roosevelt Room, but I've not been there.
They do those like really fun, super fancy cocktails, like real craft cocktails. So it's pretty neat. Basically, the building itself was built in the 1920s, and so it's two event venues next to each other, two cocktail bars.
Where is
this
it?
Is
I'm
like
trying to
my
remember
new favorite place.
On 6th?
It's
on
like
West 6th?
no, it's like West 7th-ish.
West 7th.
I need to get the exact address, but it's it's west of Congress. It's like right over there.
I know I've heard of it. Yeah. Oh, I know exactly where it's at. Okay, it came to mind. Yep.
So basically, like Jodi was saying, my personal favorite rehearsal dinner sort of switch up is to have a more intimate dinner, maybe like 50 or 60 people, but then open it up to a welcome reception. So nobody's missing out, but you still get that personalized vibe where people can like tell the really raunchy jokes and the stories and
the speeches that you do not want to have happen on the wedding night.
It still feels so intimate, but then like you're not excluding everybody. So there's a couple of venues I think that are great for that. Roosevelt Room and the Eleanor are perfect for all of that, and we're gonna have those videos up on the site really soon. I also Parkside, I've done that.
Oh yeah, Parkside's very popular. Yeah,
and that's a really good one of like using that main room for a small dinner and then opening it up to rehearsal.
Yeah.
Any of the hotels can do it, obviously.
I love the cathedral. I've always loved the cathedral. It's just such a pretty unique venue
It's
East Side, but very close proximity to downtown. So if you have like hotel blocks down here,
I really love Cooper's downtown, which is right off
That's
of
a great one.
Congress.
Well, yeah, and
I'm
same
a
with,
born
like,
and raised
Lambert's.
Texas girl,
Yeah.
so I feel like legit barbecue is
Texas
important to
there,
me. If
yeah,
you're gonna do
yeah.
rehearsal dinner barbecue, I kind of feel like it needs to be Cooper's or Lambert's
Yes,
downtown.
100%. Yeah, for downtown.
Maybe Stubbs, but they don't have a good. But
I
back
feel
to
Not
like
as good.
barbecue
But back to, like,
is
rehearsal.
very controversial.
No, well, I mean, you're not gonna do
Don't
like
come for us in the comments,
yeah,
okay?
I can't.
like
I
love
can't say
barbecue and all of those. I'm
As a
talking
non-native
about.
Texan, I can't.
That's right. You can't talk.
I can't.
Okay, there is amazing barbecue. However, I'm speaking more in terms of like event space, event venue.
Yes.
I want a place that's more turnkey where I can
Yes.
bring 50 or
Exactly.
60 people, bring in a DJ, a couple flowers from my favorite guy, Jerry at Central Market, by the way. If you're going to do like
Jerry.
inexpensive, gorgeous flowers for rehearsal dinners,
Yeah.
Jerry at Central Market.
Okay.
Amazing.
Wow.
Ren has plugs everywhere.
She really
Everywhere.
does. She
I
really
And
does.
these are not people that pay me. It's just like,
This
just
is
like
just
everybody.
the insider
Yeah.
pro tips.
Insider pro tips.
There's going to be like 4 or 5 people out there. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I saw you. I heard about you on a podcast.
I'm like-
What podcast?
it's Jerry with a G.
Oh, okay.
At Central Market on 38th Street.
His favorite color is
Nice.
purple.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I think that in my experience, often it's the mother of the groom hosting the rehearsal dinner. And she's not
wow.
wanting to get typically super into the nuts and bolts and weeds and all of that, right? She
Right.
kind of wants something. She's usually not in town. She usually just wants something that she can like get her done, you know? And so
Yes.
that's what I mean.
That's
is
very
in terms
true.
of like Lambert's upstairs. You don't have to do any decor. It's super cute. They have a gorgeous built-in bar, a great built-in stage. Same thing with Malverde.
Jacoby's would be a good
Jacoby's
one.
is good.
Jacoby's.
Indoor, outdoor.
Does Justine's Secret House ever get
We
rehearsal
have
dinners?
them on our site.
Interesting.
They are popular.
Yeah, they're very popular because of the proximity to East 7th right there, East
Yeah.
6th.
Yeah.
Justine's Not So Secret House.
Yeah, Justine's Not So Secret House. That's right.
Yeah, no, we send them probably like 4 or so leads a month
Wow,
of people
wow.
who are like ready to book.
And the couple I had this past weekend had actually got the In Cahoots. I hadn't been before.
Yes.
We're going
We're going.
soon.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
And that was like an incredible space
Oh, cool.
for like to have like they had everyone stay there. They went to In Cahoots the day before.
Nice.
Pool there as well and everything. So I hearing all the spaces you mentioned, I didn't only knew like 2 of them.
Yeah.
So obviously
Okay.
there's
I mean,
a bunch.
Juliet's
Yes.
on Barton
Oh, and Eberly.
Springs,
Oh, yeah, Juliet's, yeah,
Eberly, Olive and June, which is closer to Central. but-
Maddie's.
Maddie's.
Yeah, wow. There's so many places, but
So
they
many.
all are on the website. It's under a
Yeah,
tab.
that's right.
Listed
Yes,
rehearsal
yes.
dinner spaces. But it seems pretty straightforward. Now the rehearsal dinner itself happens, and then people want to go out. They want to party. They think the same thing for after the wedding. They're like, the wedding's over. We're not done partying. We're
Yeah,
going to keep
I
going out.
know.
I know that there are more places opening up geared towards after party stuff. But
Yeah.
are there any after party spots that are popular for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're going to bring people to an after party late night on a Friday or Saturday, you need to have a plan, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could kind of get away with bringing in like rolling up 30 deep, into a
Right.
hotel. Now in Austin, you just can't. Like your
Yeah.
people will just be stuck at the door. So you have to have a plan in advance. For the most part, any hotel would work with you. I mean, the P6 here. Have you been to P6?
Yes,
The
I have. Yeah,
line?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so cool.
Yes.
Beautiful
And
view.
that you can definitely sort of parcel off different areas. Same thing at South Congress Hotel. I mean, really, any of the hotels can section off an area for you. There's a couple other places like Codependent is
Oh, yeah, yeah,
downtown,
yeah.
and they're more like a coffee bar vibe during the day, but they'll switch to more of a after party vibe.
Yeah.
The Canopy, where is that? We just went
Yeah.
to it.
Oh yeah, over there on
Yeah.
West 7th, I think, or
Yes.
West 6th. Yeah.
Yeah, you can rent out that entire rooftop bar.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you could do
Yes.
that. Wow, I thought that was
They
just a
have
hotel.
a ground level and rooftop bar.
Yeah.
And they're kind of a hidden gem because I feel like they're in a great location.
They're such a hidden gem. I think that they should do a lot more wedding blocks and after parties.
And it's
Yes,
nice
and
because
even
like
rehearsal dinners
if you're
and
there at
brunches.
Canopy, you can just go to
To
6th.
anywhere.
Well,
Star
You're in the
Bar,
middle of
all
everything right
that.
there. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I would say those are probably the more common ones
That's
that
interesting.
that we're seeing.
Because the bars, and this is just from my experience, is they're hard to get a plan in place. Like, they don't all have event coordinators in-house that can serve as a, like, Roosevelt Rooms are great. They have their event coordinator, and you can say,
That'd be a great after party, actually.
Yeah,
Roosevelt Room.
and that's a great one.
Yeah.
I want this space. I want to add some food. I want, we're going to sponsor.
You can do
we're
like an
gonna host
F&B
this,
minimum
yeah,
to a certain
we're gonna
level.
host this
Like,
number
we're
of
gonna spend
beverages.
$3,000, and
Yeah.
after that, it's cash bar.
Yeah.
You know.
But not a lot of the bars, like on 6th and, have that role.
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely not, definitely
it's
not.
like you either have to walk in and just expect, get what you want. You can't really have a plan in place with them.
Yeah, yeah.
So you really do. So that's what kind of limits, I think, the venues in that category. But to Ren's point, there's always hotels, and I mean, for the right price, you can add on hours anywhere. I mean, within
true,
reason,
sure.
not necessarily your wedding venue, because there are sound restrictions.
Not
there.
like
Exactly.
your wedding venue.
Yeah, not your wedding venue actually, but more venues than they might not advertise to be after party places.
Yeah.
But they can certainly explore that depending on the budget.
And obviously, you'd prefer it to be like walking distance or
Yeah.
Or you're adding the
pedicab
shuttle
or
on.
whatever
Yeah.
to
Or-
your hotel.
Yeah, or Fetty. Fetty, sponsor us. Agreed.
Yeah.
Well,
Take
it's-
us home.
Take us home, Betty. Specs.
I like
Specs, please drop off a case of wine.
Yes, thank you,
Betty,
Specs.
please take us home.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying.
Hashtag it's Thursday night.
Is it Thursday?
Is it Thursday? I think it's Thursday.
Yeah,
Oh my
it is,
gosh.
it is. But no, it's funny too, because as from my DJ side of things, people ask me all the time, where do we go to after party? Where is the space to go? And it really just, like we were talking about earlier, priority. Like, what's your priority? Are y'all trying to go out and have a chill kind of like calm down moment where everyone can just like relax?
Yeah.
Or you're trying to go out and,
That's
make
true.
it part 2 of the wedding like I had as well. Like, they wanted to go to like an EDM club and hear like the best DJs in Austin. And so there's that side, but then there's
That's
also
fine on a small number.
Exactly,
Again,
exactly.
It's like rolling in 30 deep is just
Exactly. And people have like, okay, can we get into, for example, like sometimes people want to go to Barbarella's or Outer Heaven.
Oh, yes.
And that's like the after party spot, but then you're going to show up and you're going to wait in line for like an hour at peak times,
Oh, let's
after the
go.
wedding's
Yeah.
over, and it's going to kill the vibe because you're just waiting out there in front of the bar for like 30 minutes to an hour. It's happened time and time again, but still sometimes people are like, I don't care. We're going to party till, 6 a.m. or whatever, something like that.
That's true.
Everyone's different. Everyone's
Yes.
got a different priority, but I see what you'll mean for like the space that you can take people back to and bring like a good like moment to just calm everyone down before you go to bed.
One of
Yeah.
my favorites, though, I mean, we do a lot of weddings at South Congress Hotel, and they
They do a great job, yeah.
It's pretty nice that you can have the benefit of you have the indoor-outdoor options,
Yes.
right? For the right size wedding, they don't really do bigger weddings.
Sure.
But like 120
Yeah.
is like a sweet spot, which would be perfect at South Congress. But to the point of after the wedding ends, you can like do your exit, and then they'll actually just right there section off a part of the bar.
Right there next to the
Oh,
real
yeah.
bar in front, yeah.
And it can be part of your F&B minimum. So like if you're gonna bring out like late night snacks,
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
after party, can be pretty cool. I'm sure the Line would do the same. I'm sure Four Seasons would do. I mean, any of the
And they let you
hotels
have
really-
a DJ, I think, and then after his party spot
Exactly.
space as well. Yeah, South
Yeah.
Congress Hotel's got it down for that.
Yes, exactly.
That's really cool. So we always like to end our episode with a good wedding story of your favorite wedding memory or unique wedding memory that you can bring up.
I have so many.
I know, it's so hard.
Although honestly, my mind is flooded with all the horror stories
Yes.
that are weirdly happy though, right? Like you're only in this industry if you get some sort of like thrill or adrenaline rush off
Yeah.
of solving problems.
Yes.
So my
good way to
my
put it.
favorite stories are I had a tornado rip a roof off of a church,
Oh
and then the
my
rain
God.
came in, which was a beautiful story because the whole community actually came together and like saved the day. I have so many weather stories
Yeah.
that, oh my gosh, we had a wedding at a private residence where you had. Oh, now I'm going into horror stories. This is bad. But basically, even though we had the bus company out twice to measure, the bus didn't do the perfect angle and got stuck on a highway out in the country. And we had to offload all the guests. And then it was a black tie wedding. They had to walk half a mile up a hill in the rain in black
No.
tie to get to the wedding. And there were police blockading the road. It was crazy. But like those are honestly like my favorite memories. Even though like, I mean, just
because it worked out.
Things that it worked out, but also it was a beautiful wedding. They were so happy. But also, I don't know. I think that maybe that's just like the weirdo in good wedding planners of liking that sort of adrenaline rush.
Yes.
The happiest fun, just no drama story.
Well, no, I was going to say, because of the drama, it's like those things exist because they're so necessary to being a good planner in the future. You're learning from those experiences of, okay, like I've been there and this can go wrong, and you don't want to worry about this on your day of.
Yeah.
So it, for the reason it's educating you so much more of like, okay, this will never happen again. This is never going to happen again. And the more experience you get, just the better you are as a planner, really.
Yes.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, and if there was ever a problem that I could have foreseen or prevented, it would never make that list for me. I would just be devastated. I feel like that. Luckily, that list is very small because we sit in bed the night before and think through plan A, B, C, D, E. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that rarely happens. But like a tornado hitting a church, I can't do anything about. So that's just memorable for me. But my favorite like non-tragic story is just simply assisting on one of Jodi's weddings. It was just a bit of a celebrity wedding, and I texted her. I was like, "Hey, do you know how tall Vince Vaughn is?" And I was like, "I'm pretty tall." And so I made it on Jodi's wedding.
I'm not even sure you asked. I think you were like, can I just come to boutonniere?
And you were like, yes.
Wait. Start over. So how did this happen?
She had a pretty cool celebrity wedding at Camp Lucy. Oh my gosh, we haven't even talked about Camp Lucy. That's an incredible venues. But
one of the groomsmen was Vince Vaughn. So, and
but
he's
also
a lovely
Taylor Kitsch from Friday Night Lights was a guest.
Oh.
Like it was a star-studded.
Yeah, and we thought a guest was Fiona Apple, but it wasn't.
It wasn't Fiona Apple.
And we asked her. We respect everyone's privacy, but she really looked like Fiona Apple. and so we went right up to her, and she's like, "No, I'm not." We're like, "You
She was
have
so
to
fun.
be."
No, we hung out with her for a while. It was great. But it was just like a really star-studded event. But
it was very
everybody
cool.
there was so
nice,
cool and
so
relaxed
nice and so
fun. And I got to drive Vince Vaughn around Camp Lucy in my SUV, and he was just like so cool.
And I was grateful because I would have never been able to. I can't do boutonnieres well on tall guys. So that worked out great.
Yeah.
And then that's how it all started. Wow.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
That was probably my favorite.
That was probably one of my favorite memories when the last song that they were like, Vince requested this, and it was Shout.
Yeah. You're like, what?
And I was just dying because I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, he's such a dork. He was on the dance floor all night long. I mean, just to be able to work a wedding and just stare at Vince Vaughn for 5
That's
hours
all we
straight.
did. That's all we did.
Awesome.
Other than execute a flawless, we executed a flawless wedding and then
it was
stared
flawless.
at Vince Vaughn.
And then we just stared
and
at
his
him.
beautiful wife,
Gorgeous wife.
gorgeous wife. My favorite was actually when maybe not most memorable was in DC talking about shutting down streets. So South Asian weddings were pretty popular in the DC, like Baltimore, Virginia area. This was a downtown DC wedding. And so the groom's processional, the barat, was on a horse, which wasn't unusual. And in my mind, because I had booked and planned or serviced this wedding. So in my mind, when we were planning it, I was like, oh, it's a horse, so much better than like a car. He can just come around the corner because you don't need to close down a street. Mm-hmm. And we needed to close down a street. So So this hotel that I worked at was right down the street from the Capitol, Capitol Hill. So that street, so closing down a street for, a groom's barat in DC on a weekend was just kind of like, it was one of those moments that was exhilarating because it was like, and then seeing him come with, and we actually really did need to close down the street because he needed more than a sidewalk. Like, it was, people were overflowing, the music and all of that, and just the energy. I just love that tradition in general, but actually having a street closed down in downtown DC was like so cool. Yeah. So or anything like that, where you just shut it down.
I feel like some of the best like dance floors that I've done is like when like
Yeah, what's your story?
Well,
That's exactly what I was about
do
to say.
I do have a story, but the energy is like when it's there, like you never forget. Like I'll never forget, like working at certain places on a second floor, and you can feel the whole dance floor going up and down. My laptop's going like this on the table, and it's like those to me are some really, really cool moments. I thought about this before, and I think my favorite memory of a wedding that I've ever done. Is when this one time when I did a wedding at the Allen House for this couple, and these two must have been both lawyers or something because they were so both well spoken. It was ridiculous. But they told me initially going into the wedding, they were like, Nick, we need 2 microphones for us, and I was like, yeah, well, like who's the officiant? He's gonna have the lapel microphone on him. And they're like, no, we're going to officiate our own wedding. We'll be the ones saying it.
That
Like,
just gave me chills.
yeah. So like
we're gonna represent ourselves.
So it was crazy. Like they're
that's
like
cool.
everyone arrives at Allen House. They're all in the courtyard, as you can imagine. Everyone's talking. The bride and groom are there. They're just dressed. And then finally, he's like, "Hey, Nick, can you make an announcement for everyone? Take a seat." They take a seat. They walk up together down the aisle and go to the front. And then he kind of starts it off by saying, welcome to the wedding. He's kind of like introducing the moment. And he just pretty much like has like a full thing of vows that he says, but he's not reading them. He's saying them. And they're so
In the moment,
eloquently,
Yeah.
like it was like a
love that.
movie. And then
Yeah.
she, like, it's not like he was just the one leading it. Then she takes the second half of the wedding over and says equally beautiful words and stuff.
Yeah.
And like the moment of them officiating their own wedding, showing
Yeah.
off how well spoken and educated and in love they were. Like I
Yeah.
think of so many times, like how many weddings I've been to where the couples, you're like, wow, that was insane how much they loved each other.
Yeah,
And you
I
see that
know.
happening and like in front of you in that moment. And I remember being like captivated. I was like, can we be friends after this?
Yes.
Because
Can I be a part of your love?
I know. Who are you people to be
Yes.
this confident and
Yes.
able to share such a beautiful love story? I'll never forget them. Like in
That
terms
is
of like
very cool.
that wedding, but it was so unique and special that it's never been done again. I've done like 1,000
Yeah.
weddings and I've never seen it even closely happen, but
Yeah.
it's truly my favorite memory to look back
Have
on.
you stayed in touch with them?
I haven't, no, but I wonder what they're up to today.
I feel like wedding planners have the benefit of being in touch with somebody for a year, or more. And so you're really like engaged in one another's lives. I feel like they know my children's schedules
Yeah.
and, we become friends on Facebook. And one of my greatest joys is like seeing all the babies that are born.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
started
And
doing that
it's
because of that
like-
reason. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my gosh, I just love it. We were leaving on a family vacation this summer, and at the airport, I ran into one of my former clients who have since had 2 babies, and it was like me and my kids and them and their kids, and we're all just unloading our luggage at the Austin airport. And
Yeah.
it was just cool to kind of
Yeah.
see them in their like future life and not just the
Yeah.
wedding day. And I was so emotional, I cried. And not to get too like esoteric or like woo woo, but thinking about you as a DJ and talking about the owning a dance floor and like feeling sort of those vibrations of, an entire like floor of a building. I do think that we're all on some sort of a vibration, just our whole world, our nation, just being humans on this planet. And there's so much negativity and so much that can get you down. But I love what we do. Like,
yes.
I love
Yes.
that you can come in and control a room of 200 people and control that mood, control that vibe, lift everybody up. I mean, there's, I've heard I don't want to like steal somebody else's podcast idea, but I just feel it in my soul. Like I grew up in the church for so long, and it's so easy to be like, I'm a Christian, I'm this, I've felt this, the Holy Spirit moved me. But also, I feel that way at Taylor Swift concerts. I feel that way,
Yeah.
I feel that way with a good DJ.
It's
I feel
exactly
that way
right.
with a good band. When you're in community with
Yeah.
other people and you're physically feeling this vibration and energy and you're all lifting each other in the name of love for
Yeah.
weddings, at
Yeah.
least. Like, we're not just getting shit-faced downtown. Like,
Right.
this is in the name of love,
Yeah.
in the name of, like, couples and community and family.
Yeah.
There's just nothing more powerful. It's like going to a mega church, Like, it
No,
just
agreed.
feels so
It
good.
never gets old.
I think of that moment every time
Yeah.
a wedding begins in the ceremony, and it's like, man, like everyone's here right now celebrating these 2 people.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're declaring, like, and it doesn't, like, when you think of wedding, you think, oh yeah, whatever. But like truly seeing them, like, enjoying each other's presence and being in love on that day is like, man, first of all, you're looking the greatest you're ever gonna look in your life.
Yeah.
You're feeling
Yeah.
the greatest you're ever gonna look. You've got everyone in the room around you that you're ever gonna have. It's truly like Like, I don't take it for granted one minute when I'm
Yeah.
doing this job. It's like, man, I'm lucky to be a part of this industry. I'm lucky to have my friends and have the same vibes as other vendors and stuff where you're like, man, like, thank God everyone is here to make such a wonderful occasion for these people trying to express, you know, an emotion.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all doing is we're expressing
Yeah.
emotion. The words get in the way, but the emotion's there, and that's kind of the best part
Well,
about
and
it.
I really hope, I mean, yes, I'm an entrepreneur and I have ideas and all of that, but like my genuine goal for Wedding Scout is to truly empower couples to just make better decisions so
Yeah.
that through that process, they're able to really enjoy their engagement and enjoy that day.
Yes.
Because on our wedding planning side, we've seen it all circle down and storm at the end to like blasting out of budgets, and the way that can like really, you know, dampen the mood, obviously. And so I hope that the service we're providing just like contributes to more joy and happiness in the world.
Yes. The sixth.
Cut out the
seventh
stress.
P.
That's
Yeah.
the seventh P.
Back to the P's. The P's, the S's, and the fives.
Boom. That's the theme of the day. Well, it's been so wonderful having you on this
been
episode.
so nice to be
and
with
of
you
course, weddingscout.com is the place to go to
Yeah.
find out more
Yes.
about it. But are there any other channels or any other things I want to plug before we sign off?
Of course, yeah. Via Wedding Scout, I don't do wedding planning, but I highly recommend 36th Street Events. Those are my
Absolutely.
sisters and my friends, and
Yes.
I believe fully that there's no better wedding planning and design company in Austin. So
Well, amazing. Yeah, 36th Street Events. Beth is the owner, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And her last name was, remind me again?
Walker.
Walker, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah. So check them out. But then as well, we'll be releasing more clips and stuff in the future. We'll have more episodes. Like I said, we'll be talking about traditions in the wedding industry. We'll be talking about DJs. Hair and makeup was another one that reached out to us, and officiants. But we'll have plenty more episodes coming up in the near future. We'd like to especially thank the Line Hotel, who is hosting us today in this beautiful space. But it's been wonderful once again to have y'all on.
thanks, Ned.
Yes, thank y'all so
Yeah.
much.
I want to come back again and
I
again.
know.
We could just be
I've had
side
so much
hosts.
fun.
We could just,
We're gonna have plenty
we
more
can sit over
episodes.
there. We'll
When-
sit with double A.
We have literally
Yes.
taken up your whole day.
Well, thank y'all so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been wonderful. Goodbye.